Oh, yeah.
All right, that's off.
He said the,
1 o'clock.
I'll kill you.
Great to see everybody. Just a reminder, phones. The public meeting going. So kill your phones. And like to welcome everybody back. It's been a bit and really good to be meeting with you in person, and had y'all met Stephanie the last go around. What was she doing?
Well, she was in a meeting, remember? If you
Oh.
lean up too far, you look like the cow on the milk ad. Your face gets about that big.
Nice.
Okay, I think we'll end with that. So again, thanks everybody. I mean, everybody coming from a distance to get here. I mean, most of you have come a long ways. Paul and Donna and I and Cindy are pretty lucky because we're all within hour and a half or so. So
How close are you? You're not an hour and a half away, are you?
they are. I'm like, let's see.
10 minutes.
See, if I come at 7:45, it's about a half an hour. If I come at 7, it's about 10 minutes. Yeah, everybody comes up here to the Capitol, so. I did wanna, mention quickly, so we met Deb O'Neill, last meeting. So Deb is gonna be here just for a little bit. Would you like to?
Yeah, I'm gonna sneak out, so I just wanted to say hi in person. And just thank you for everything that you do. It's really important work and I really appreciate it. Know you are in good hands with Jason and Stephanie, and most of you guys have been on this committee for a long time. And you're in good hands with Chair Beal too. So I just also want to offer, if you ever around the office, you want to stop in and say hi, please do. If you want to chat, give me a call. I'm gonna be watching, so you guys got to be on your best behavior. It's kind of like Santa Claus. So I'll be watching today and tomorrow, but if you have any questions that I could help answer, I'm in the office all day. So if you guys want to give me a holler, do.
Okay, great. Thank you, Deb. And yeah, and I was checking. So who isn't able to attend? I believe Rod and Eric were gonna get on Zoom.
God just texted me, said he's gonna get on.
Okay.
Eric
And-
will be a little late, so I think he had another.
So we have some folks who are not in the state. Rich Roth is at the American Cattlemen's Association Convention. And so he has assigned his proxy to Rod. Okay. And then Everett Headley is out of the state, as is Drew Steinberger. And I believe Drew signed his proxy to Dale. And then Everett signed his to me. So those three.
But you guys all got 2 votes. I don't know if that's really fair.
Mr. Chair, Drew is on the
Oh.
meeting, so.
Oh, great.
You can say hi, or if he's muted, but he
Hey
is.
guys, going through TSA right now. Thanks for getting me in here.
Oh, you're gonna be really attentive there, Drew.
I'm almost done.
And where are you heading?
Heading to Nashville to the SCI show.
Okay. So did you meet Everett already?
Not yet, but I'm sure I will this evening.
Yeah, all right. All right, well, thanks for getting on there. We good? Okay. Any other reminders before we get rolling? Anybody can think of? Okay. All right, so today, we'll start with our member home reports and then go through a series of updates from Fish, Wildlife and Parks, some staff reports and Region 5 presentation. And that'll be most of today will be FWP reports and updates to us. And then we'll have public comment. And then at the end of the day, we have a no host dinner for us at the Overland, which is near your hotel. So it'll be close and convenient. Give you a chance to stretch your legs before and then we can get together. I did wanna, I mentioned this at the last meeting, that the governor had recognized the council, for its work with the Spirit of Montana Award. Representative Logie was at that event, here at Lake Helena when it happened back in the fall. So I'll have this here for y'all to look at, but it's recognizing all of us, on behalf of the work we did last go round and working with MOGA and the Elk Coalition and the legislature to get some good things done. Okay, so that's here, and then the letter from the governor stating such. So for all of you to enjoy. Okay. Okay, so we'll start with home reports. I don't know if Drew's still on there standing in TSA. Do you want to give us one quick? Maybe not.
Barry said he doesn't have to be.
Eric?
Okay. All right, Cindy, how about we start on your end?
I'll just, it's the usual stuff, but, there's great interest in the Senate bill. I think it's 422 that they're gonna have to re-vote on the legislature. So people are watching that.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay,
It was good up in our country last week. We had a little skiff of snow about Halloween and everybody thought, here we go again. Then it warmed up, melted off. Hell, we didn't get any winter till decent January, and then it went from 40 above to 40 below in about a week. And now it warmed back up again, so it's good up there. Everybody thought the mule deer were all gone. The EHD got the whitetail. The mule deer is starting to show back up again, but we get reinfested from Canada. They get a bad winter and they didn't come down, you know, because the herds move back and forth there. So I think we're okay, but I'm sure everybody, all the out-of-state hunters that I saw were all, for the hunter, where are all the deer? I said, well, the Fish and Game's got to do this stuff 2 years ahead of time. And they don't know how many there's going to be or what's going to happen, but they thought the doe, they were, maybe next year we don't need extra doe tags. The local guys did anyway, but no, everything's good. We had lots and lots of grasshoppers. I think there's gonna be lots again next year, but I don't remember why they went away in the 80s, so. I'm hoping it's gonna get rid of them, so other than that, everything's good. No elk, that's a good thing.
See where they're
sure.
because it was helping.
Okay. We're gonna back up a sec at Stephanie's request. So let's just do a quick where you're from,
Oh, okay.
when
I'm
you
from
begin.
Butte.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And my grandkids go to school in Hinsdale, which is west of Glasgow, anyway, so our ranch is in that approximation there.
Appreciate
You bet.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll start out with, I'm in Superior where there's no elk, no deer, there's only wolves. And so there's never much happening there. All the block management goes to Representative Logie, so.
So do the elk.
So not much happening in our neck of the woods.
Okay, thanks, Ray.
Miles City,
Yeah,
you want a home report or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought we were going around and telling where we're from for now. Mild winter so far, of course, like most of the state, we had that one cold snap, but it should bode well for wildlife survival and plenty of food around after last year. Things are looking good in that regard. Block management participants that I've talked to have been generally very happy with the increase in payments. Big game hunting pressure in southeastern Montana was definitely down this year. I think the reputation or the notice that the big game numbers were down led to less people plus no doe tags. But on the flip side, the upland game bird hunting pressure was significantly higher in our part of the world than I probably have ever seen. hearing some mixed feelings on the proposed split for the 2024 Region 7 antelope season. Also hearing some frustration related to the proposal to close the sage grouse season. I've had 2 or 3 people send me emails or text messages saying, is it really that dire? And but again, that's a proposal at this point in time. And then grasshoppers, the proposal or the predictions are to have epic grasshopper numbers in southeastern Montana, that if we have a wet spring, if we have those kind of numbers of grasshoppers, could be a real negative for the habitat come next fall. That's what I have.
Donna?
I'm from Alder, Montana, about 2.5 hours, so. Yeah, down by Dillon, and no, light winter, especially compared to last winter. Some freezing, but streams are running. Looks good. I can still fish out the back door. So last year I didn't even think of that, but I was very fortunate. This about a week and a half ago, I was able to help with the Fish, Wildlife Parks capture of bighorn sheep and the tagging and checking the health. And I just really want to give out a shout out to FWP and the care and the gentleness and how much they cared about those animals. I was absolutely amazed. I mean, they whispered, they talked, they got the job done quickly. They were hands-on, but not hands-on. Like they did their job, but they didn't want to disturb the sheep. You know, so I was extremely impressed. It gave me a chance to visit with some of the game wardens and the biologist, and so that's been interesting, and that was a lot of fun. So just a shout out there. I am working with the Forest Service on the permit system, and Cindy, maybe at dinner you and I can visit about some of that as well. Very complicated, ongoing thing, and there's a lot more behind it than we see in print. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the permit system. The Ruby Valley Strategic Alliance, I don't know if any of you have heard about that, but they're working very hard to get people at the same table. So when we do have wildlife issues, that we're lined up at the same line in legislation. So that's been a real positive. So a lot of local raptors, permittees, and grazing associations. I'll keep you updated on that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm
Mr.
from
Ellis.
Bozeman. I guess in the winter, of course, that's going pretty mild, and the biggest thing I'm hearing, talked to quite a few landowners across the state. And a lot of them would like to see more, involvement from the Fish and Game when they, talk to them about season setting and that kind of thing. I think they feel like they kind of getting overlooked on the process. I know they have a lot of opportunities to comment and stuff, but I don't think the word's getting to them, and I don't think a lot of them feel they can, their voices are being heard, so they aren't really participating. So I think we need to do a little more on that, in that area, somehow getting them more involved in the process in the PLPW and on the season setting for the Fish and Game. So that's about all I have.
Thanks, Paul.
I am Region 4, Lewistown is kind of my home base. I actually am originally from Helena. I actually was lucky enough to participate in one of the sheep relocations a couple of years ago and have a little update on ours. The biologist counted at least 21 that survived of the initial herd that was transplanted. They're getting hit pretty hard by predation and pneumonia, mostly mountain lions in that area. It's really tough for houndsmen to run in that area. So that herd has been getting hit pretty hard, but there was some lamb recruitment in the last couple of years. So that's kind of promising. They're hoping to see some more lambs this year. With the changes to the upland bird regulations that are proposed, I've heard lots and lots of locals in my area very encouraged by the commission working on amending the regs for non-residents with the dog training at the late season start. And they would encourage looking at some other structures, such as 7-day permits, or, late start for pheasants as well, for non-residents. Our local biologist did just do flights, for mule deer counts, which was pretty interesting. Her postseason mule deer flight, in 410. Last year she counted 172 deer, which is 33% of the long-term average. Or sorry, this year was 172. Which is a lot better than previous years. In 2022, there was 47 deer she counted, and in 2023, 67 mule deer. This year she counted 8 total bucks. 5 of them were spikes, 3 were young adults, and 0 were 4 whites. So that was kind of sad to hear. 410 has been pretty low in population. She just flew 417. She just started flying that last spring and counted 71 last year. This year she's counted 66, and 15 of them were bucks, 2 4 points, 7 young ones, and 6 spikes. Most of the folks I've spoke to are really embracing the changes in Region 4 to the permit structure, and really hoping to protect that mule deer herd for future generations. Elk surveys will start February 16th, and this year they're flying 410, 411, 412, 417, and 426. And it's pretty exciting. There's a couple conservation easements going through. One is the Stafford Ferry Conservation Easement, which is 417 and 426. And the Hannah Ranch in 411, they're in the final stages and will be heard at the upcoming June commission meeting and go to the land court for approval.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yep, sorry if that's too thorough.
No, that's great. So I see Rod is on. You look muted, Ron. If you can unmute.
Because I was, yep.
All right, so where are you at, Rod?
I'm sitting at home, Jordan, Montana. Winter's great. Deer, elk, antelope, everything's doing good. We had that little cold snap, but nothing new, right? As far as anything new going on in our region, got some changes made that are very beneficial in the commission meeting in December. Going to help the resources out a lot. Got that done. Just typical deal with the landowners, you know, had a long fall as far as trespassers and some poaching and all that illegal outfitting, all that good stuff. They're getting a little upset, a little fed up with the trespassing and the lack of participation from the FWP is participating. We had a unique situation. We had a county attorney that refused to prosecute any FWP cases unless he was allowed to send in billable hours to the FWP. So anytime they wrote a citation, did whatever, they had to write a report and send it to the AG's office. So we're trying to get ahead of that and get that changed. So anyway, that's all I got.
Great, thank you, Rod.
Yep.
Drew, are you on? See, but you're muted if you're on. I'll take that as a no. So I'm in Helena, as you know, Stephanie. I think really it's been pretty quiet, kind of like Lee mentioned. Now that we went from 40 above to 40 below, we found all the elk that we couldn't find when it was 40 above. So all the elk that didn't get harvested, I would say all, but many appeared with that cold weather in a more obvious fashion around this area. So that was good to know, because I think everybody around here was thinking all the elk were gone, and we knew they weren't gone. So they were just hiding better than we're used to going for. A little bit of the same talk with Cindy, so I won't repeat it in regards to 422. People wondering how that's going to go forward and anticipating different results if it does go forward in a corrective manner as they see. Other than that, it's really been pretty quiet around Helena for the moment. other than within FWP making their changes and updates and finishing the season that we've gone through and collecting data that we will all use to measure where we stand and go from there. I do have a question though, to Rod's comment. If the department has any active response to that in regards to trespass and prosecution. Are you aware of any, Jason or
Are
Deb?
you talking about Jordan?
Yeah,
Yeah, that judge in Jordan hasn't been hearing any cases. It's not just pertaining to FWP. There's just an issue with him hearing any cases right now at all. And
Okay.
I don't know anything more past
Okay.
that, but it's not an FWP.
so it's not selective to trespass
No,
or fishing game
no,
violations.
it's the judge right now.
Okay. I guess that's good to hear,
Kind of,
other than the folks in that
but
area.
yeah,
that got
the
that
director's
service.
aware of it, the governor's aware of it, and I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's not
I thought
just
more
for
the
us.
county attorney than the judge, but is that not true?
I'm sorry, say
I
that
thought it
again.
was more the county attorney than the judge.
It's a little bit of both right now. So, yeah, the county attorney is not prosecuting anything, but it's not particular to FWP.
Oh,
There you go. Well, thanks for letting us know that, Deb. Any other comments?
I'd like to ask Stephanie, you said it was a conservation easement there between 411, 412, 417. Is that a department one or a nature conservancy one or what kind of?
I don't know the logistics completely. That is the Stafford Ferry Conservation Easement and it's 417, 412. I do know that one does not need to go to the land board as it is coming under $1 million in state funds, so
It's a
it's,
state sponsored one, so it's with FWP.
I don't know for sure. I don't want to comment on it and
Maybe
sure
the
say
director.
one way or another.
Yep.
I just know that it won't go before the land board because it is under 1 million.
But is that what is it? What's the name? Habitat Montana or something? They did that. There's been several of them over statewide. Is that under that program, Brad? Do you know? Or
I can't specifically say, I don't know, Jason.
I'm not aware of the, I'll have to follow up with Ken or Rick and get back.
Dale?
Mr. Chairman, I got a text from Drew and he said he's actively listening, but he is not in he cannot make comments at this
Okay.
point in time. He's
Okay.
engaged in two things at once.
Yep. Okay,
Thanks.
all right. Anything else? All right, great. So let's get rolling with FWP updates.
Yeah,
And we'll jump in quick.
great. Thank you, Chair Beal. Last year, we had started with inviting our regional access managers to these meetings and having a regional access manager give a brief presentation. So we had a presentation on the Matador. Last year, we had Kendra McCloskey from Region 2 give a presentation on her approach to landowner relations. And today we invited Region 5, Trenton Heisel, to give a presentation on his approach to landowner relations. So in a few minutes, we'll cue him up and have him give his presentation on his approach. But today we have our staff report. It's also something new that we started last year, just giving a really high level overview of the work that we've been focused on since our last meeting. So this report has a lot of great information in it. Jason put it together with the assistance of our regional access managers. And he is here to answer any questions and just also give any other brief updates that you may have questions about.
So as far as the report goes, really I kind of broke it down by program, but block management, another successful season. We're seeing, at least initially, kind of what Dale had mentioned in terms of lower hunter numbers, lower hunter day numbers just across the state, really. I'm not sure, we don't necessarily break it out by species. When somebody's hunting, they're not signing in saying I'm hunting X, they're filling out the post evaluation component that would be identifying that they saw a game or that they harvested game that they're pursuing. on that front. But yeah, we're wrapping up the block management season. We still have a few properties that are open for a late elk shoulder season. Waterfowl, we just wrapped up as well here at Central Flyway. Have a few other properties that are focused on some elk harvest through a couple different access programs, one being a regional access project, we call it. Trenton actually has one, and then Evan has one as well, where we're focused on trying to manage elk harvest through the use of access technicians. We're scheduling and wrapping up scheduling for block management land appreciation dinners. Many of you got to attend last year, one or multiple of those dinners, so thank you for participating in that. The first ones coming up will be actually February 20th is our first one in Region 7. So if the council is interested, I can compile a list of dates and locations. You guys are certainly invited to attend those through our regional access managers. Let's see. So for the block numbers overall, we had about 6.9 million acres enrolled by about 1,300 landowners. 900 block management areas. It's relatively consistent, been relatively flat over the last few years in terms of landowner participation, acreage, and those kinds of things. With block and with the elk hunting access agreements, we went through an administrative rule update process. So a lot of the administrative rules specifically for block hadn't been touched since 1996 when they were drafted. And so we went through a big red tape relief effort to simplify, to remove some language that could be put into policy or procedure. And we're working through those procedural documents right now with the final adoption coming next week in the February 16th commission meeting. So Friday, those SOPs and the adoptions will hopefully be posted. That'll be 2 weeks prior to the commission meeting. The access public land or the unlocking public lands and the public access land agreements, both kind of doing the same thing. One is the tax credit program, and the other one is a payment or an improvement. So PALAs would be payments and improvements. And so you guys in the past have reviewed those locally, made a recommendation, because as part of your charge and statute is to review and provide the department a recommendation on those. So we'll do that again this spring. Those applications and for both PALA and UPL should be up hopefully the end of next week for landowners to start applying. One of the big changes, there's two big changes, I guess you could say, for PALAs. One being the removal of the $5 application fee. Thank you, Representative Lowe, you prepared that one for us. That cleans it up, makes it a whole lot easier. We're not depositing a $5 check or cash and trying to mess with that. So thank you for carrying that. The other one being, we did go through an administrative rule update process in March of last year. So we didn't get it in time for last year's applications, but this year we'll have applications that can consider access opportunities for less than the 2 mile restriction. So if you guys remember, we used to have a 2 mile restriction between access points, more or less. And we found through applications and on the ground truthing that 2 mile restriction was actually hindering some good projects, especially for motorized access. And so we went through an administrative rule update to change all those as well last year. And that was again through this group of folks. March 15th will be the deadline for both of those applications, for both the unlocking public lands, the tax credit, and then also the public access land agreements, the payment. So we'll look to do the regional process in April with you guys and your local access managers and kind of that local regional recommendation. And if there's anything that you guys want to push before the full group, we'll follow that same process this year for those PALAs. Switching over to elk hunting access agreements, very similar to block. We just went through the administrative rule process. We're in current process of drafting those operating procedures for how that program will actually run this year. Should have an adoption notice and those SOPs posted here by Friday for again 2 weeks in advance of the commission meeting. We're currently working on gathering the feedback of participating landowners and hunters last year. We participated in 2023. We have about 65 public hunters who haven't responded, about 11 landowners who haven't responded yet. So we'll be taking under an effort to do some direct phone calls to those individuals and see if we can get those evaluation and harvest numbers back for that EHA program to present a report for the commission. And then lastly, We'll open those applications, like I said, ideally, April 1st, running through May 1st. The May 1st is a deadline we set in rule, and they'll be approved or considered at a June 20th commission meeting. So that's kind of the high level program updates on various programs.
Questions for Jason? So, to be clear, Jason, so for timing for completed reports on access success, when is that? Is that February 16th?
So for the upcoming access program,
Just general in all programs.
So our annual report will basically feeds your private land public wildlife advisory committee report for the legislature. So we probably won't have block numbers and everything tallied up until the end of February, early March. So it'll be, you know, right in time to feed right into your guys' report for the September EQC meeting. So that's kind of, I think, where we're focused right now is that September EQC meeting for your report, and we'll have both 2023 and 2022 data for that report. So my goal would be to have something to the council by July, so that you have some time to review it and make tweaks, maybe at an August meeting, and then it would be presented at EQC in September.
Any comments on the specifics within this? I guess one comment, and I think you will hear this later, and I did pass out comments that I received on an email in regards to the administrative rules update, and then the proposals that are sitting in the commission. This report states that, you know, we did have direct involvement, and if I understand this clearly, we really didn't. You know, we had limited involvement in the beginning of that process back in June for specific half a dozen, I didn't bring it with me, half a dozen specific changes in wording. And then that turned into what I see as a wholesale change. And just to comment, I think with block management, my concern being that it's the most successful program of the whole menu, is that those policies that become out of that change address enough accountability and consistency throughout the regions to be very well applied. That's a concern I have from not actually having been involved in that process in any way with this council to discuss those changes. I feel like this statement is probably not real accurate. Because we kind of went from a few rule changes to a red tape wholesale cleaning in that process.
Yeah, I can certainly modify that statement. To be more clear. The council certainly was the starting place, right? We had similar conversations with a few sportsmen's groups as well as some ag industry partners that also saw a similar draft as to what the council had been working on. And I don't know why, I think at Great Falls, maybe when we had that Great Falls meeting, we all kind of sat down and went through some rules and some pieces of rules, and then yeah, it was kind of towards the end of the process when we kind of switched into more of a red tape relief type of project.
Yeah, and I guess just simply, I mean, it kind of catapulted from there to the commission, and now in 2 weeks, that'll be decided upon. So I do have some just concern about that, how that goes forward within all those programs, particularly with block.
Jerry, may I ask something? Are you concerned about the SOPs themselves and the content, or is this more of a administrative?
Well, my understanding of it, is there is no SOP right now,
They're almost final,
right?
yeah,
And so will those be, presented at the commission?
so, yeah, we're waiting to hear back from the governor's office right now on being able to publish these, the final adoption notice for the EHA and BMA firms. And once those are published, then we're gonna publish these SOPs at the same time, and we'll take public comment on those. And I will say, you know, we made a commitment to the public and the governor, and the legislature on making sure that anything that we've taken out of those arms will be captured in these SOPs.
Okay, Dale?
I guess I would kind of follow up or reiterate what you said. When we had the meeting way back when, it was after the meeting that you'd had with other organizations, because you took the same PowerPoint or whatever and presented it to us, and now to hear that these are gonna go to the commission, and let me take a step back. After the meeting, yeah, the main changes were made, but I never felt there was an opportunity for PLPW to take and provide comments as an organization back on what was kind of the final proposal. And now it's going to the commission for February. And once again, I don't really feel like we've been a part of the process or to the point that we need to be. I guess I look at PLPW and I think that's one of our core missions. I mean, when you look at the code of what our tasks are, I would read into that should be one of our core duties, is to review the access programs. And I feel like we're always 2 weeks behind on things, and again, I understand the need to get this finalized or moved forward so things can get done for next hunting season, but it would have been nice to be a more active part of this review.
Did you feel that, I guess you weren't aware of the process, the Secretary of State's process for the public comment for PLPW, or?
Well, I guess how I would look at it, yeah, I can go in and I can make comments as an individual. But I think it would have been very nice to have a meeting to where the final recommendations, including the implementation, were laid out, whether it was a Zoom call or whatever, to the PLPW, with the opportunity as a group to come back with a consolidated group of recommendations or support or whatever for it. And I just don't really feel like that was adequately done.
Yeah, and I apologize, I don't know what happened prior to that, filing with Secretary of State. I know that once it's filed with Secretary of State, we can't, show preference to a council or committee or, different organizations. So, but I don't know what happened prior to that, and I apologize, if you don't feel like you were involved enough, but once it goes to the Secretary of State, there's really nothing we can do about that public process.
And I guess, Deb, I would have thought, or my feeling is, we should have had greater involvement before it was filed.
Yeah.
I understand, but once it goes to that point, then the ability to comment is, or to have preferential treatment doesn't exist.
I think what happened was, as Jason was saying, it kind of switched gears to be a red tape initiative, part of the red tape initiative. And so I think that's where maybe we lost that contact and might have fallen apart there a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can just add to that. That is where it fell apart a little bit, and we had several terms that expired.
Yeah,
And they didn't get reappointed to be able to come together and have a meeting. So it was kind of like the perfect storm of two
I had
pieces.
forgot
So,
about that, and that's certainly a factor.
That was definitely part of the situation, is that, at the end of July, we were inactive as a council, waiting for those reappointments. And so what we heard from Jason, I think it was a June meeting, I believe, was a brief beginning And that was really my comment. I mean, my concern is you have this long-term program that has a lot of things in place that are nuanced in many cases. They're clear for the parameters, but then the application amongst the regions needs some leeway to be applied. And so just to be sure that we can be as consistent across those and effective as we have been in the past and more so in the future. Yeah, I understand that that's what happened. And it just gained all its momentum in our interim when we were not meeting. And when it's really our primary, we just did a poll in December, and without fail amongst the 13 members, block is certainly the thing we want to keep our eye on, that we don't lose focus on that great program. That's all. Okay. Don't know what you can do about it. I just felt this statement was a little too far. And we'll see where that leads.
Yeah, I'm happy to modify it too. It's just simply a paragraph.
Okay.
You and I can work on some clarity to that.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions in this though?
Are folks interested in landowner dinners this year? Would you like me to compile a list and
In which again?
the landowner appreciation dinners? I know if you
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'll compile a list and provide that to the group.
And
No range, like I said, starting in February 20th is the first one in Miles City. But then from there until June, so it's a kind of a varied structure across the states.
okay. And then Jason, I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up or not, but in regards to when we're looking at these program comparisons and such and evaluating the programs as we get down to that final report, is there a way to account for time that regional access folks put into evaluating and administering the programs? And could we come up with kind of a cost benefit analysis, if you will, of various programs? Is there any way to do that?
I'm sure there's a way. Right now,
Without creating more problem than you have.
so right now, all of our hunting access programs are all funded out of the same hunter access fund. And so there's not like a separate project where I code my time or expense for elk hunting access and then public access and then BMA and everything else. The regions are set up the same way, so that they have one project and they code all of their effort to that same project. I know when we started up some of the PALA initial discussions, there was kind of just some time estimates produced by certain regions on how long it takes them start to finish for one public access land agreement. And granted, you're looking at comparisons of thousands and tens of thousands of acres versus those that are very minuscule, but even the minuscule ones can sometimes have some complexity with actual existing public access, yes or no research that has to be done there. So there's not a clear way to do it at this point. We could throw some time estimates, like I said, I can estimate how much time it takes, start to finish from a landowner applying for the elk hunting access agreements to how many repeated calls we need to make on the back end to get their survey response back. That there's just, it's kind of so varied, but yeah, I'm sure if the committee would like to see something that we could probably develop just a simple estimate on.
Yeah, to be clear, I wouldn't want to waste your time in determining how much time it takes.
Well, that's part of it, right? Is that that takes time also. So,
but and clearly my question does relate to EHAs and the time for reporting, verifying, certifying all the parameters of the EHAs versus block. And I don't know if you measure that in comparison to hunter days or harvest, or what actually quantifies the result, but it would appear looking at those in the past for the amount of reporting you have to do to justify particular EHA agreement is substantially more than a block program. I agree. So. Okay. Any other comments or questions for Jason on this report?
Will we come back to PAL administration later in the meeting? Or is it now time to kind of the same discussion or related to the presentation that Jason just made? It's just, I've tried to stay very engaged in the PALA program, the review of those program or those applications in Region 7, and certainly have looked at them from around the state. And I look at PALA, and if you look at elk hunting agreements, block management and PALA, and you tier them in terms of what are the most controversial, I would say the elk hunting access agreements are highest, then block management is below there, and then you have the PALA program. And if I were king for a day, I guess the one thing I would like to encourage upon Fish, Wildlife and Parks is that they review the approval process for PALAs. You probably have heard that from your own people. I don't know that, but I look at it and think, man, there's a lot of hoops to jump through to approve a 320 acre PALA agreement when it has to be approved statewide, but you can have a 100,000 acre block management area that the regional supervisor can approve. I guess I would just encourage the department to maybe focus their time to say, okay, when we rank these and we provide scores for them, we want to have some level of consistency in terms of how one region scores an item compared to another one. But once that has been put in place, leave that approval authority to the regional supervisor. It just seems to me like, man, we're as busy as those people are. And then I've talked to enough regional access managers from throughout the state. Their plate is overfull. And it just seems like the number of hoops they have to jump through to approve a PAL agreement is just not warranted. Just a thought.
Any other comment?
I think I concur with what Dale said after we've gone through this and the state employees have got the the parameters are in place, and we shouldn't have to pick their shirt up and see if they got a tattoo or not. We just put the thing through and let it go with that. It'd be more routine, like block management, it makes sense.
So since you bring that up. So in code 87-1-269 paragraph 4, the private land public wildlife advisory council committee shall review public access land agreement proposals.
Right.
So
we don't have a choice.
Correct.
Fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's in state code, and then recommend to the department. And I don't know, we had that discussion, correct? About, there are 6.9 million acres in block that we don't review.
Right.
And there are, how many acres in Pella? 5?
Last year was 540,000.
But we've also streamlined already the review for
Right.
PALA. I mean, we've worked on that over time, and I think we've streamlined that pretty significantly, at least when I look at Region 7, I believe we have.
Yeah, and so for us, I would ask, when we did the first couple years, 2 or 3 years, and we went from full review of every PALA, everybody on the council, every single PALA agreement across the state. And then I think we used that to sift all the deliberations into the sideboards based on the recommendations of most of the regional access folks. When we did that and brought it to then the region and then a final approval, are we happy with that? And do we let that stand? Or, I mean, the only other option is you propose to change that code and put it all into the access programs approval. That's the two options that I see available to us.
It was Mr. Chairman, it was a new program that we started, and it was a significant amount of money for, but I think it got the better stuff. That I know out in our area that a lot of those elk were impacted by the roads because of all the roads go to somebody's deeded land. And so and I think we've got it set up to where it's better now, and having us to oversee it's probably okay. We don't have to go through every one of them, and if they've been approved and everybody's been happy with them, like Dale said, then we just give our approval when we go on it.
Donna?
This was what we had to go through, and that's quite overwhelming, and we hire these people and they do a lot of research and they do a lot of work. And they're trusted employees of PLPW. And for us to review some of these, and we don't know the inside story. We don't know the local scoops. And so I would say the majority of the trust goes to the department, and we can review if they have some projects that may be contentious or a little worrisome. But I think we really need to trust our department unless there's some issues on certain projects.
Okay, so does that mean we leave it as it stands? Or are you
It may be
proposing?
easier to leave as stand, but keep in mind that we have trained professionals in the field that are doing work for us.
Cindy, you agree?
Well, I kind of thought that's where we ended up on this, actually, the last time we met. That we, yeah.
Lee?
Yeah, I agree. It makes sense to trust the people that spend all their time studying it.
Well, no, I'm confused on when you're saying that, because to me, do we, I mean, this really wasn't on the agenda, right? But do we leave it as it stands? Or do we propose a change in legislation?
I don't think we need to, if I'm allowed to say something.
Okay.
I think that we can do like Donna said, we can trust our people but we still ultimately, if something comes up where the bear stopped, they can come to us and say, okay, what's this deal? So I think it's serving the purpose the way it is now, don't you, Dale? If we're not looking at every one of them like we did to begin with. And there were some questions, and we've got the standard. We've kind of got a standard modus operandi for the whole state, so.
I think within an hour or prior to the final approval, what was a long day process now could be abbreviated into a much shorter overall briefing. And, if there's ones that are contentious, maybe we weigh in on them, but I just think that whole process could be abbreviated significantly without changing the code.
Okay. Right?
I thought we already discussed it.
Well, it just came up, so we're just running through again. Donna, leave it as it is.
Leave it as it is, and we're here as an advisory.
Paul,
Yeah, leave it alone.
are you clear, Stephanie? Yes.
There's a lot.
There's my, Eric. There,
Okay, yeah, there, I finally found the mute button. Can you hear me?
question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Rod?
I'm good. Leave it alone.
All right, there's that. So. All right. Next. I didn't expect to go there, but yeah,
it was resolved.
It's good to know now because we're gonna start applications and so we'll start that process relatively soon. It was something needed to change. So.
Okay. All right.
All right, turn it over to Trenton.
Let's cue up Trenton Heisel. He's the Region 5 Access Manager. He has been in this position now for a year and a half. I think he started right about the same time
We can tell you.
I did.
Yep, yeah, June of 22, so about a year and a half now.
We're the same, Trenton. That's great.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna share my screen. Hopefully. All right, can you guys see that all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. So thanks guys for giving me the time to talk today. If we haven't met yet, my name is Trenton Heisel. I'm the Region 5 Access Manager, and I'm going to briefly go over how I approach landowner relationships. Let's see. I don't know why, but my computer is not. My apologies. There we go. All right. So one of the big focuses that I always have to bring up and remind myself is that, access isn't all about business. A lot of times we focus on our programs and we really talk about policy and guidelines, but with our landowners, we don't have access programs. So the key to having successful access programs is about building these landowner relationships up. So last spring, as a brand new access manager, I started the process of doing our landowner dinners, and I realized that that was a key opportunity for me to start these relationships brand new. And one of the ways that I did that was actually telling a little bit about myself and my personal story with access and how I got into the position I'm in. And I'm going to share that personal story with you guys today. So I've always admit right off the bat that I didn't grow up in Montana. I grew up in Washington, and I grew up in a diehard hunting and fishing family where from an early age on, I joined my dad and got out into the field and, got to experience hunting firsthand. And one year I remember my dad coming into the dinner table and telling us that our group was actually going to go to this little town called Glasgow, Montana to go hunting. And as a kid, I was extremely excited. And I asked my dad, when are we going to go? And my dad looked at me and he said, we're going to go, you have school. So I never got to go to Montana actually, but he would come back and our group would come back and he would tell us all these great stories and bring back these huge bucks and really expand and tell us about this relationship that he built with a landowner in the area by the name of Don Burke. And the relationship that my family had built with Don, allowed them to hunt on his property, to camp on his property, and break bread and have dinners with him and his family. And that really motivated me. And as soon as I could, I got out of Washington. Of course, I went to Montana State University. And there I studied fish and wildlife management, and I graduated with a degree in 2016. And I was looking for any opportunity I could to get in with FWP. And of course, the first opportunity I had was as a hunting access technician. And I always joke when I give this presentation, I wish somebody had told me that was not a good look, but I had to try it. So that's a key part about me is I like to be lighthearted and genuine and joke. So I got a job as a hunting access technician up there in Glasgow. And I remember my first day on the job, I walked into my new boss, Tim Potter's office, and I see this sign with Don Burke's name on it. And I had heard so much about this landowner from my family, and I had no idea that he was actually one of the first block management cooperators in the area. My family had never said the term block management before. All they focused on was the relationship they built with Don. And sadly, I never got to meet Don. He passed away before I even came to Montana, but I really hoped that he knew somehow that the access he was providing gave my family stories that in the end motivated me to move out and get into the position that I am today. So that's a little bit about myself and the personal story I really use to build that relationship with landowners. But the thing about landowner relationships is that there's some key things that I really try to remind myself constantly and sets the foundation for success for me in my position. And one of the first big things is that I had to understand agricultural livelihood. I didn't grow up in a ranching or farming family, but understanding the timelines and what requires what requires the most time for landowners can set myself up for success. The perfect instance of this is when I got into my role as the regional access manager. Our landowner dinners were in June, and June can be an important time for planting or first cutting. So I identified a period between calving season and that June, cutting and planting season. And now that's when we have our landowner dinners, because I want to tailor what I do around landowners' timelines. The next thing about it too, in these relationships is constantly listening to their needs. Our access programs are extremely flexible, but if we can identify what their needs are on the ground by allowing public access, we can set the relationships up for success. The other thing about it too, when I communicate with any landowner, both one that's currently in the programs or one that I'm trying, to present ideas to, is I always want to be intentional. I'm never going to overpromise. I'm never going to sell our programs, but I'm always going to tell them straight up how these programs would work and how they potentially could affect their properties. The other thing too, like I said before, I always try to be lighthearted and genuine. I'm kind of an extrovert, but being able to sit down with a landowner over a cup of coffee or on the tailgate and laugh and joke really builds the relationship in a positive note. But also, as an FWP staff member, I also have to remind myself that I represent the agency and I'm always going to be professional in my capacity. So some things too that, I always try to remind myself that motivates landowners is, I love this quote by my counterpart, Kendra. Some landowners fundamentally feel that's their duty to share their property with everyone. And that goes for both landowners that are currently in programs and then also landowners that aren't in formal programs and just share their properties with, door knockers, quote unquote. But from a department standpoint, to motivate, or some things that the department does that motivates landowners to either get in the program or stay in the program, is an open communication. With our landowners, us access managers are a direct line to the department, and they know who to call, even if it doesn't pertain to access programs, which by allowing open communication, they get responsiveness and a FWP commitment through us that we're going to address some of their concerns. So whether that be wildlife management concerns or enforcement issues or even game damage problems, they have a direct line to us, and we have a responsiveness that we can, go out there and provide to these landowners. The other thing too that, I heard Lee a little bit ago talk about the payment increase. Tangible benefits is a huge incentive for some of our landowners. And, what we can provide both monetary wise and then also going into, our complementary licenses, that's something that a landowner can hold that keeps them in the program or gets them into some of our programs. But I think one big thing that we really do need to focus on nowadays is the flexibility of our programs. A lot of times I've heard landowners say, well, I don't want to allow everybody out there because we hear block management, it opens the doors to everybody. That's actually not the case. We can really tailor the programs that we have to those landowners' needs, like I said before, and create a successful opportunities both for the landowners and for the hunters. So the next slide I'm going to show you guys, I kind of made these presentation slides last week for a larger regional access or regional staff meeting. But in doing so, I dove into some of our programs. And what I'd like to share with you guys today too is a flow chart that I created on all of our different programs and potentially how they can fit these landowners' needs. We've been talking for a long time about having something that staff can use to either, when they talk to landowners, they can kind of utilize it to go through and see what would be the most beneficial or the best fit for landowners. And I truly think that as, FWP as staff, this might be one of those opportunities. So I think Stephanie said that she printed some off for you guys. The way that this flow chart works is that it's divided up into two different main categories. We've got our programs that allow access to the private property and then access through the private to public land. So hopefully this is a useful tool, not for only staff members, for you guys as well, when we talk about these programs, because there's a lot of detail for it. But ultimately, I feel like it's my responsibility to start advocating for access more with our staff and with the public and even with new landowners. And this potentially is an opportunity for us to expand that. So, but the last thing, when it comes to landowner relationships, we always got to say thank you, because at the end of the day, like I said before, without landowners, we don't have access programs. And so even showing gratitude to the landowner that's even considering public access, that can bring opportunity. So, and this is a good opportunity as well to talk about our new Thank a Landowner portal. I know we talked about the last PLPW, but we're trying to create new ways to show gratitude to our landowners for being enrolled in these programs. And I think that it's worth celebrating every opportunity and always finding those times to say thank you and give back. So, but that's a little bit about what I view landowner relationships at. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'm available. So thank you.
Thank you, Trenton. Anybody have any questions for Trenton?
I don't know how to stop sharing.
Yeah, I just wondering, as I talk to a lot of landowners, I'm sure you focus mainly on the existing landowners who participate in access programs. You reach out to non-participating landowners, non-traditional landowners, and try to bring them into the mix. Try to find out what they might want, need.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah. So one of the ways that I do that in particular is going to a lot of public community meetings. So whether that's like Win It Aces or working groups, I try to see any opportunity to meet new folks, because there's landowners out there, whether that be traditional or non-traditional, that they're allowing public access right now. They're just not formally in a program. So by making myself available to those landowners and allowing them to ask questions, that could start the framework for it. The other thing too is that the big point of when I gave this presentation last week to our regional staff is that it's not just me being an access advocate. Our biologists, our game wardens, they're constantly meeting landowners by being out there in the field. And sometimes, like you all know, these programs have a lot of paperwork and a lot of time behind the desk, and I can't get out there as much as I want to. I'd love to be constantly just having coffee out there, but I think we do really need to build up that strong community of access advocates with our biologists and our game wardens and even technicians that are out in the field. So, but in short, yes, I'm always looking for ways to meet new landowners.
Other questions? Brendan, great presentation. I've got a question in regards to the hunter. So, from your perspective as a new access manager with a lot of energy, a lot of good energy, as you first started talking about, this is about relationships and not business.
Mm-hmm.
We've discussed in the past that possibly hunters have become too reliant on the fact that FWP gains access through all these programs. So I'm wondering if anything has come to you about the hunter in regards to how the hunter can kind of claim their responsibility in creating that relationship. As you mentioned, there's lots of folks who have grant access individually, but I kind of think maybe we've lost that talent in the public side as hunters. Has any of that struck you in your new endeavor?
That's a good question, Ed. I do constantly remind hunters that call me up that block management or our regional access projects, especially here in Region 5, they're not the sole opportunity to get on private land, especially during the shoulder season for elk hunting. Jason kind of talked a little bit about that. We had a new regional access project this year, specifically for elk. And a lot of those neighbors in the area, they were allowing public access just by door knocking. So I was getting phone calls way after that regional access project was booked up for the shoulder season. And I constantly reminded folks, I'm sorry, but it's booked, but I'll let you know, you should be communicating with some of these landowners in the neighborhood because they're allowing access. It's not formal. I can't give you permission right now, but it's an opportunity for you to build some of these relationships up. And I did hear back from one hunter that was able to get on one of those neighboring properties. And he said that landowner actually said I could come back next year during the general season. And I would not have known that unless you had recommended me door knock. So I have been seeing that a little bit of reliability on, well, only the landowners in formal programs allow access. And I'm trying to educate more often that's actually not the case. So, but that kind of does, not to, sorry, long-winded, but that kind of ties into the question before about communicating with new landowners. Those have been opportunities to enroll more property. I hear through the grapevine, well, so-and-so down the street has been allowing access, but they've never been approached about block management before. And I've gone and told them the specifics on it. And we did get a couple of those involved this past season. So 2 of the 3 new ones were exactly that scenario.
Great. Yeah, I think when you mentioned flexibility too, to me, that's kind of maybe been misunderstood. And also misunderstood by the hunters, because hunters think that they have carte blanche once there's an access program, and that's obviously not true. Landowners are gonna have that opportunity to limit the access in the way that they're comfortable with, and therefore we gain that access. So I think that flexibility is a key thing to focus on for those folks that want to do that flow and that to their capacity.
I agree.
I think we've created a lot of other programs that could all fall under block. One umbrella of block. If you put them all under there and said, here's the option for flexibility, kind of like you did here. Really, if you put all that under just, it's one program and here's the options.
I agree.
Great job and a lot of good thought and organization.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
One comment, we look at the acres that we open up for block management and the federal acres and the state acres. Every acre in Montana is open to hunting. You might have to marry the guy's daughter to get in, but almost all of it. When I was younger, it was everything was open. There was you couldn't sign a deal and be a rancher for a day. You went to the neighbor and you asked him and he said, sure. And in our country that we've been there 130 years, it's the same people. There's a lot of new ones, but basically every acre in Montana is available to be hunted if you do the right thing. And if you make friends with the guy, he's going to let you in there. You might not be able to sleep in his spare bedroom or any of that kind of stuff, but it'll usually almost every acre we set it up so that it looks like this is unavailable. It isn't. Some people just don't want to answer the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning or do that kind of stuff. If you want to go hunt there and you got a budding hunter, almost everybody will let you in and they'll be glad to see you come again. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. Yeah, any other questions or comments? Well, it's great to hear from a new access manager. I think everybody on this council has really appreciated the dedication and the insight that each of you had as you presented to us. And we clearly know that you work hard, and you got a ton of excitement. And I was kind of curious if you ever hunted over on Lee's place, because he must know Mr. Burke.
Oh yeah. Went to high school with him.
Yeah, see.
No, but we don't have anything cool on our place, just mule deer and pheasants and grouse. There's no elk. I think there's a moose occasion. You gotta have a really good license to get one of those.
Yeah. So yeah.
I don't think I've actually ever hunted your property, Lee, but I'm not quite sure if with that photo of me with the beard, if you recognize me, because I was your technician in the area for that season. So
Did Tim tell you that looking like a moonshiner wasn't a good way to go?
He should have.
education wasn't what you needed to do to further your career.
Well, you got the real job now, so you're out.
Yep, exactly. Gotta look professional now, I guess.
Well, great report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the time.
Well, we can go home now. I mean, you got guys and many others like that working on this effort. It's really great to know. Yeah,
Good energy.
yeah. Thanks for that, Stephanie.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to Trenton and the entire Access team. I mean, they each bring such wonderful personalities to the program and each brings something unique and different as well. So we'll continue having them show up to these meetings and give brief presentations if you'd like. I know they enjoy it, so.
Yeah, it's really good. Very insightful and helpful for me anyway. Yep. I'm surprised Lee didn't know though.
I didn't pay that much attention. Katie Iverson's been ours. Tim Potter was there and then Katie took it over and then everything got changed around and he might have been up there. Yeah, they're just, nobody bothers them. If they see them driving around on your place, everybody, the hunters worry more about them. We know them.
All right. Who's next?
Mr. Lemon.
What part of the agenda are we gonna tackle first? This the Hunter Landowner Stewardship Program?
Yeah, that's what's on next one.
Okay.
Introduce Mr.
Oh, yeah, let's let Francis go first.
Let me follow Trenton since that was such a good segue. I'll go ahead now.
So,
Another
with your permission, Chair, I'd like to introduce our new outdoor skills program manager, Francis Recius, who plays Wade Cooper. We're happy to have him and he can introduce himself.
Yeah, I don't have a huge presentation like Trenton. I very well could have. I grew up on the Rocky Mountain front, where we just hit our centennial in 2019. I just found out the story through one of my grandpa's letters, and my great grandfather, twice removed, several generations, was in World War I trying to avoid getting conscripted into the war, and was riding a train and saw free land in Montana poster. And so that's how we ended up on the Rocky Mountain front. And we've been ranching wind ever since. Rocks and wind, that's the only thing we could pretty much ranch so far. So I've been in education for the last 12 years of my professional career. And I just celebrated my 2-month anniversary of being in this position, being in charge of hunters education, bow hunters education, trapping education, and some other education programs for fish, wildlife, and parks. I'm super encouraged. It is a monster. It's a bear. I like it a lot, and I'm just coming to get to know it. So it's very encouraging. It's good to see. I just ran the numbers, and we hit over about 10,000 students go through the education program just in bow hunters ed, trappers ed last year alone. So those are great numbers. Most states are looking around 5,000 in the West. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'd like to meet you individually. It's a little bit more impersonal standing up here giving an introduction. So I realize how important this committee is, and education is where it starts. It starts with informing our youth and new hunters about land access. And having my specific ranching background is pretty, I realize it's very fortunate for me to understand that and go through this process. Never eaten beef until I got married. So I didn't know that you can do that until I met my wife and she introduced me to a steak, and now I don't know if I can do that. I'm very encouraged to meet you guys. If you guys have any questions, just feel free, ask me now or shoot me an email, give me a phone call too. I'm great on the phones. It's nice meeting you.
So is that bison you've been eating?
Oh, I grew up eating mule deer and whitetail and elk, you know, and I didn't know you could eat. It was a sacrilegious on the ranch.
No, I don't think there's.
Oh, yeah.
Any questions for Francis before we get into Hunter Landowner Stewardship?
I do have a question, Francis. Now that we're Butte has always had the shooting part for the.
Oh, yes.
But some regions that dwindle down.
Most do not, yeah, right now, learning that. Yeah.
Yeah, is that, I mean, just to get the instructors, do you have a plan that's?
A recruitment plan for
Yeah.
instructors? I do. It's actually one of the things, we're going into our instructor workshops for the next 3 months throughout all of the regions. And yes, getting out there, boots on the ground. Me specifically in this current role, we're not doing enough getting it out there for our land. We are in need of instructors. We have about over 1,000 instructors over the programs throughout the state, with around 700 being mostly in Huntersville. And when they sit down to make classes, schedules and things for each region, out of those regions, they're only getting on average between 8 and 10 people who want to teach classes. And then when they sit down and schedule those classes, of those 8 to 10, about 4 people sign up to teach them. So you can see is we have this culture and heritage around education programs, and it's so broad, and it's been so long since the 1950s when it first got implemented in the state of Montana. But we're struggling. And since COVID, we're really struggling to get people reactivated, trying to get younger people my age middle-aged into the program to instruct and teach. And, not all instructors are teachers. And so you're trying to patch together this patchwork for education. And so one of my goals is to get out there, get out to these groups like Backcountry Hunter Association, Wild Sheep, and get it out to the people who care the most. They're putting a lot of money towards conservation. Let's get them invested in the youth. Let's get them invested in education portion of that. So hitting the ground running, Big Spring getting us out there, we made postcards to give to people where you can see how do you become an instructor, making that a seamless transition too. So communication, I think I'm fairly good at that at times, and getting out there and being boots on the ground is my greatest mission. Is to hit those people that care the most and are passionate. So,
just as an aside,
Sure.
just because they're the people that do the shooting part in Butte, the veterans.
Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, that's a good one. I do have some connections in the VA as well, so that's a great idea. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's one of the largest is getting people involved, and with the constraint of time. Everybody seems to be in the last few years, their time has been stretched down more and more. So, yeah, that's one of my largest goals. Thank you. Great question.
Francis, I
Yeah.
have a question for you, kind of a follow-up on
Sure.
that. We can spend a lot of money on education,
Yeah.
but if we're not getting it out there, if we don't have the instructors, if
Yep.
we don't have the means to get it into the right
Yeah.
hands, that money is we're not getting the best bang for our buck.
Yeah.
If you have some ideas, or if you have some input on how that can be done, I'd be certainly open to read some of if you put
Yeah.
together an email and
Yeah,
send it to
absolutely.
Ed, and so that we can look at that, because we're talking about spending money on educational programs. We need to make sure that it's getting into the right hands, and how we can help you get instructors or the right people teaching these classes.
Yeah, this is getting out there with lead instructors to this group especially, and instructors who are committed to spending that time and doing that. Yeah, I can definitely, yes, please, yeah, let's communicate.
An incentive program or something that we
Yeah.
can,
Yes.
think of. So just trying to think outside the box a little bit. See
I
what
like
we
that a
can
lot,
do to
yeah.
help.
Yeah, I think it takes one of the things I like about being in this position is that I am very passionate, and I'm very coming from the education background. You have to train your trainers first and get them involved and get them incorporated. And I think we can do a better job of doing that, right? And making sure that they have the skills needed to go teach those classes. And I feel we can do a better job of doing that no matter aspect. And it's not like we were doing a poor job before, but if we train them better where they feel more, maybe we'll get them to stay and teach more classes. So yeah, lots of good ideas in that. So yeah, let's talk more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't wanna, I always say, why do we have to think outside the box? Let's remove the box and get
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, and I'm really great. The wheels already create. States are doing this better around the nation. Let's take what they're doing and get ahead of it. Montana has a tendency to be a little slower in these aspects, and the winds of change are blowing no matter if you want them or not. So let's get ahead of those changes and be prepared and be implementing it and encouraging and building those programs to be more successful.
Well, I'd like to hear more from you.
Yes, of course, yes, let's talk more. Thank you.
Other comments for Francis? You know, where we intersect so much, I guess we take for granted safety. In this council, because what we hear is behavior. And, you know, the campaign, it's up to us, you know, and how that gets incorporated in the future in hunter ed with all new hunters, whether they're young or a little older, I think is one of those vehicles that we are concerned about how that's applied at the hunter ed level. And in particularly to Montana, you know, what are the issues here and how are you able to educate on that for these issues, whatever they might be. So we spent a lot of time talking about behaviors and what that does to negatively impact access. So you'll probably hear a bit about that, and I know you know it.
Oh, yeah, for sure, most definitely, and you hear it. Yeah.
Good to meet you.
Very nice.
So, I'm glad Francis is here and, we started on that conversation. So the Hunter Landowner Stewardship Project, I think it was last year about this time, we were talking about it and, we had a sub group meeting, to look over some draft language. There's been a lot of changes that have happened, internally on the education front for us between now and then, or between then and now. You know, Wade left and, prior to him leaving, I had, put this, you know, kind of was hoping to have him work on the hunter landowner stewardship piece. Trying to think about how do we, from that component of hunter ed, how do we sync up some of our ethics, conversations, education type stuff so that it's symbiotic across our platforms. Ed and Wade and I sat down and hashed that out, hashed it over a little bit one day too. And then the legislature came to town and we had a big, long conversation on hunter ed at the legislature. And out of that conversation came Director Warsak's commitment to putting together a committee, and so hunter ed committee. And so we spent diverted our attention to that for the spring and early summer, and it was a really good effort. So we had a 23-person committee that came together to talk about hunter ed. We met twice and developed a suite of 6 recommendations or ideas, I guess. It's how I would put it. And in the midst of that is when Francis stepped in to the role. So Wade was there for the first meeting with the advisory council and Francis was there for the last one. In fact, that was his, like, one of his, oh wait, no, he wasn't there for the last one. He missed the second meeting, but we had an internal meeting on his first day of work where we went over all of what the advisory council talked about. So it's been a trial by fire hose, but at any rate, I think as it pertains to the Hunter and Landowner Stewardship Project, we've got 2 things that need to happen in the short term, and they're not different than where we were. Visiting with you about it. We have the edit, the content of the test, and so that's something that we're taking on right now. So there's a lot of words, there's a lot of very flowery language, and a lot of really high aspirations for that test, and we need to get the content modern to the education standards that we have today, not that we had 20 years ago or whenever the test was done. So I'm working on that piece, and then there's a series of videos that accompany that test, and I think we can do those videos better. Right now, the videos aren't really worth anything. They're kind of confusing because they're, you know, like 10 seconds of something or other. So we've actually got quite a bit of hunter ed type video content, and then we've got access to quite a bit of content that talks about landowner relationships and ethics and doing the right things. We can compile that together, and I think we can come up with fewer videos, but more impactful videos that are integral to the program. So I've got my videographer is working right now to look through that, and we're gonna come up with some ideas on how we can, what we've got, and then how we can create pieces that we need to update the program. So the idea would be is to have the same objective from the program standpoint that we've had before, which is a program that teaches hunters the importance of landowner relationships and landowner ethics, or hunting, the ethics of hunting on private land and hunting in general, but just a better program. And then, you know, see what we get when we get to that point. And then I think that would be a point to have you guys come back in and really evaluate where we landed, and to see, do we let that ride? Do we look at a phase 2 that's even a more in-depth look, or where we add or subtract or change course? This is just the program conversation, so this isn't the incentive piece. You know, I know you guys have talked about incentives over the last couple of years for this program. You know, so, you know, wherever you land on incentives, you know, we need to have a good program that, you know, regardless of what the incentives are. So that's kind of where we're at. Happy to take any questions or.
Is it your intent after you get these videos done to take a group of convicted felons and play it to them until you evangelize them and they become hunter ed instructors or something?
You're reading my mind. Yeah. No, I think, well, for official input, we'll try you guys first.
Oh, okay.
I do have a question. It would be interesting to see what the 6 recommendations were from the Hunter Ed Council.
Okay.
Because as we evaluate where you may end up, it would be nice to know what those are.
Yeah,
Our
and
evaluation.
we'll send those, because in fact, I was just talking to Sarah about that. We sent those to all the hunter ed instructors and asked for their feedback, but we can get those to you. And they're pretty detailed. So there was one policy piece on online education. The rest of it was pretty specific. Like there was a recommendation on program consistency, you know, resources for instructors, recruitment, things like that. But absolutely get you those.
I personally feel the best bang for our buck is within our youth and our hunting community. And until we get a good solid program there, I'd hate to spread you too thin by throwing incentive programs at you. So that is just my personal opinion, the opinion of the group, but I would like to see a real solid hunter ed program.
Yeah, and we're on our way. So one of the things with Francis coming on, that's just Wade did such a good job for so long, and he worked really hard to corral a program that was really, at the time, you know, just was kind of operated at how it operated depending on where you were in the state. And Wade got a lot of consistency and program consistency, and Francis is here and taking a fresh look at it. We've got some of the, so on the back end of this program, we've got 2 new people, Francis, and then the Education Bureau Chief, Sarah Malloy. And so they're both really fresh to this and come with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of background on sort of education planning. And, you know, Francis isn't married to how we've done things forever. And so we are looking for new and innovative ideas, you know, and to me, the sky is the limit. Because ultimately, to your point and the point of Hunter Ed is we want safe, ethical hunters in the field. On the ethics side, we want to always keep trying to think, how can we keep chipping away at this problem of hunter ethics? And, you know, you guys hear about it, we hear about it, the commission hears about it. You know, there's been this year, you know, there's just, to me, there's just too many problems, too many complaints. And, you know, and so there's gonna have to be lots of different avenues that we try to tackle that and chip away at it. And, you know, so we're just gonna keep working at it.
Do you have a timeline set up?
For the project? Not one I want to get committed to. We've got, I think we can get something, I think we can get some pieces in place by early in the summer. Some of it depends on, just what sort of video need we're gonna have. We're stretched pretty thin on video needs, but we can look for some help. You know, we've done that in the past where we've contracted with folks to come in and help us, you know, with some real narrow projects. And we might be able to do that if that's where we come to, but we haven't really been able to evaluate what do we have that's available to us, and then how do we pull that together. I hope that we don't have to shoot new video work, because I think there's a lot out there, but that's probably the biggest question mark. The text of it, if someone will lock me in a room for a week, and I could probably get it hammered out and then turn it over to the education people and let them, you know, work on it. But that video piece is still a question.
Thank you.
Well, do you feel that this course, once we get it up and running, will be able to change the ethical behavior of grown-ups? Do you think they're the ones that are gonna listen to this stuff? I just have a hard time thinking that we're gonna change unethical hunter behavior with this course. I think we can do it. We can start with the younger generation, but I'm afraid what I'm seeing out there, trespassing and poaching and stuff is not, I don't think this course is gonna really entice them to change their behavior.
Yeah, I will say this. So I think the audience that we're trying to reach, that all of us would really like to reach, is the people that show up at a sign-in box and think it's okay to go to the bathroom. You know, people that leave garbage, you know, on private. Those people are hard to reach because they're just not paying attention to that, to us, when we tell them to stop doing bad things. But I would rather have a tool than not have a tool. And if in the long run, if it's not an effective tool to reach that audience, I still would rather have it than to not have it and try to solve the problem. So I think you make a good point. I think the other piece that you know, I think going back to Hunter's Ed, you know, we keep looking at ways to insert landowner relations, and you know, ethics are a big component of our Hunter Ed course. And so, you know, I think there's ways we can look at getting some of that stuff in front of kids, that whether or not they select to be a hunter, to take Hunter's Ed. So now if a kid wants to hunt, they have to take Hunter's Ed, and the percentage of the population that's hunting is, you know, in Montana is relatively flat. I mean, we're not increasing the number of hunters as a percentage of the population in any dramatic way. So maybe there's a way we can get some of that stuff in front of kids that aren't selecting to take Hunter's Ed, and I think that might help. Looking at ways, maybe it's in the classroom, you know, we're in the classroom for lots of other things. Maybe there's a way we can talk about the importance of private land stewardship, conservation, hunter ethics, landowner relations, things like that in a way that's not directly tied to signing up for hunter's ed course. So those are things.
You know, I guess, you know, I think we can probably do that with the younger generation. I just am concerned that we're not able to reach these and change their mind.
Right.
I honestly think the only way we're gonna do that is with stiffer penalties and better enforcement.
Stephanie?
Have you considered partnering with some of the organizations who are really pushing the R3? Like BHA, working on elk, partnering with some of them to push out your message and even sponsor some of the content or?
We have, it's been, so BHA has been really responsive, they've been really supportive of It's Up Top campaign, and Kevin's been fair and has been great with. We've had limited success in getting it. I mean, everybody's supportive of the idea of better ethics, but you know, sort of like rolling up their sleeves and getting into it, that's a little more challenging, I think. So I think it's gonna have to be more, get those folks engaged. It's gonna have to be more than a marketing campaign. So the Hunter Landowner Stewardship Project is a real tangible thing, but right now it's optional. And so your success at getting people to go through it is really making it compelling for people to go through. You know, it can't be 2 hours, so we all know that. And maybe there's a way to incentivize it. Maybe there's, I'm sure Onyx would want to partner on something like that. They've been a willing partner with us. So maybe there's some things like that we can look at. But I think to get people really, those groups really engaged, it's going to have to be more than kind of a communication marketing campaign. But we're always open to talk. That building those partnerships, kind of pulling people together, it takes a surprising amount of capacity to keep meeting and meeting you guys.
Are you developing some way, it doesn't have to be really long or anything, but to get non-resident hunters to take it?
So we are focused on the program, and I think, you know, who is required to take it, or, you know, our audience, I think, you know, it's going to be hard to tailor it to anybody more specific than a hunter. I think if we were,
I'm talking about non-resident.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean, we've heard that the department's heard the same problems that you guys are talking about. You know, the upland pressure on upland birds, non-residents. You know, you guys listen to the commission meetings and they've heard it too, and they brought it up. You know, and how that allocation stuff gets played out is really, I think, going to be at the legislative and commission level. So, you know, if there's some comes a day at some point where a non-resident hunter has to take a education program from us, we'll be ready to deliver.
Eric, did you have a comment?
Yeah, do I have my mute off? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you know, with this upland bird thing, I think that they made a good recommendation for a 15th opener for non-residents and a first opener. So I wanted to say that, and then back to Paul's comment about that, you know, changing people's behavior. I think maybe if the hunting on the accessible lands looked as good as it did, you know, on the block management, as it did on some of the land that's managed less for people and more for wildlife, I think that would help solve a lot of this problem too. So that's all I had.
Thanks, Eric. Stephanie?
This is maybe just a suggestion as part of, I know it's hunter landowner stewardship, but also reminding those people who take this course that public land is also their land. So they should also take care of it, because I know there's a lot of bad behavior in public as well. And while it's not necessarily land owned, it's owned by all of us. They should take care of it as well.
I think we got enough irons in the fire, but I'd love to entertain the conversation about changing the name of the course, just because it doesn't quite make, I mean, we all know what it is because we are familiar, but it doesn't quite make sense for somebody that's uninitiated into the conversation. And so there might be a way to brand it a little different.
Other comment? You ready? So
I was gonna bring my catcher's gear, but
I don't know where to start with this, Greg, but recognizing all those changes from Wade to Francis, from Hunter Ed in, Hunter Ed out, and this program. I mean, we have a program that exists that's just out of date. And if we all go back, harken back to our initial, it was Hunter Van Donsel who commented that to pheasant hunters, it had value. And it just had value because of the relationship part. And that's where we began with this. And we all watched it and said, it's just out of date. The messages are right. It's missing some things, but it's out of date. And so when I did a poll here in January, right after our December meeting, every single person of the 13 on this council mentioned behavior. Now, we only have certain ways we can address behavior. You're currently addressing them in the big, broad sweep of the It's Up to Us campaign. And that's as good as you're going to get for the big, and you've got partners and a great message that's concise. And I think that's the big campaign. However, you know, even in this management program or plan, it's mentioned a number of times as a vehicle to address various issues for managing elk where they are, which is access, however that is. So somehow I believe after all this time, a lot of your comments were, well, we've got that figured out, let's move on. But really, we don't. We don't have it figured out. And we agree with the perpetrators don't usually pay attention. And yet you can't not address it. You know, as Stephanie said, Stephanie Prater, it's the public's behaviors that we need to focus on in every aspect. Public land, private land, accessed land, agreed to access land, whatever the case, it's kind of the whole bailiwick. So I'm not willing to let it go because it comes up in every venue of everything we talk about, whether it's trying to get county attorneys in one county to prosecute an issue. I mean, it's all there. Or toilet paper is from trespass. I mean, we all know that the number one issue that we've heard over and over from the wardens that was quantifiable is trespass. Okay, so communicating that, you know, how do you say that? Well, in the campaign, you could say, now trespass means this. And if you want to lose your right to hunt, keep doing it. I mean, I wouldn't say it that way, but that's kind of the deal. So when we are looking for content, I think we need to find those, you know, key messages, get them in there and go on. I mean, you've got your hands full. I totally know, we all know that. But so to wrap up my comment on it, I had sent an email out to everybody about this is kind of where we are with this program. And you had commented in the past, what does this mean? And I think you're still fishing for that, if I'm reading you right. not to put words in your mouth, but at the end of this council last June, we thought we were gonna go forward in July and August and continue on. And at that point, I believe we were at a point where we were ready to say, let's make a recommendation to incentivize this program. Whatever, and I agree with you, if you change the name of it, whatever is more fitting for the time, I think that's great. But nonetheless, to incentivize the hunter landowner stewardship program as soon as it's updated. We all decided that you couldn't require it. Do you recall that? We came to that conclusion. We just never got to July or August to make a decision on it. So I guess we can do this tomorrow in our action, but I do not want to forget it because we've already had this deliberation, at least for this council, for 2 years. And we are supposing that it's kind of done. Clearly, it hasn't been because of all the reasons mentioned above, justifiably. So if that still makes sense, I think tomorrow we should propose that and get it done. It's only a recommendation. You know, we're just making the recommendation that, because I don't think Greg and Francis and whoever else is involved can create that program if they don't know what it means. You know, is this, and Everett, tomorrow I'll read Everett's comments on it when we get to that part, if that's all right with you guys, because I think he lined it out quite well, summing up where we didn't get to with the end of last year. Does that make sense, Greg?
Yeah, and I feel bad we haven't got more accomplished on it, and I appreciate the grace and understanding what we've been working on. But I think this isn't, I think Ed, your comments recognize this. It's not happening in the vacuum. There's a master hunter program out there. There's an evolving basic hunter ed program out there. We've got schools. We've got some of what we're seeing, I think, from a hunting pressure standpoint, particularly in eastern Montana, is the rise of the online hunter, that can put, an hour's worth of great wing shooting in eastern Montana on a YouTube video and 50,000 people see it. They think, gosh, I can do that too. And so it's the dynamics that are involved around hunting in Montana right now. They're changing. It feels like the sand's always shifting a little bit, and we're going to struggle to stay ahead of it, and we're going to struggle to keep up with it. And so we've got to be pretty strategic, I think, in how we do this. Right? So whatever the PLPW decides on a recommendation, our commitment is to have a better program on the ground as soon as we can. And I'm happy to come back tomorrow, so we'll be around. You guys talk.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I think we're dealing with two issues here. I think we're dealing with the basic, trying to educate folks out there that are educated. We can reach them, and I think we're dealing with people that we can't reach through education like this. And something we need to address, something that's going to, curtail this trespassing, poaching stuff that's going on out there. And I don't know if I reached out. I wanted to know if we've seen, if the wardens and stuff have seen a sharp incline or increase in trespass and poaching stuff going on out there, which I think they probably have, because I'm hearing a lot more about it from different people. But I think we got two issues here. I think, yeah, we put this to bed. We get the course up and going, and I think that's going to address some of the, the toilet paper and this kind of stuff, and the people that are willing to listen to that stuff. And then we've got to address the other people that you're not going to teach them ethics. I don't care what kind of courses you give them and make them take a course, they're still going to do unethical things. So I think that's two separate issues here, and we need to address both of them. And then we need to you know, once you get yours going, see how it works out. I think it's a whole different problem, set of problems.
Anybody else? Eric or Rod?
I think Paul knocked it out of the park with what he just said, and I'm totally on board with this program, but I still think we need to maybe work on increasing some fines and some penalties and make it hurt. Because like Paul said, we can train the young guys, but the hardcore trespassers and historical poachers, the only thing that's going to stop those guys is hefty fines, in my opinion. So that's my input.
Jail time.
Yes.
I mean, I feel like taking away hunters' rights from a poacher is such a silly punishment. Obviously, we should continue doing it. However, a poacher's gonna be a poacher, a trespasser's gonna be a trespasser. So it needs to hurt. There needs to be tangible jail
So
time.
we did do that a few years ago in 21 by increasing the fines. And I think to Paul's point, we should actually get the stats to measure that. Short of that, you know, you're talking jail time, other measures, and some of those we proposed and weren't able to do. So we can go back there again. I hear you, and I agree with that.
I'll have Francis, when he gets a second, pull the remedial hunter ed to see how many people we send through remedial hunter ed.
But to your point, they're taking the hunter landowner stewardship course, right?
I don't know, are they required to do that?
Yeah,
for remedial?
who is that?
It's a great question.
I think that's how it was. I don't remember if it's current, but that's part of the remedial.
Yeah,
And it's so out of date. It doesn't even say block management,
right.
anything.
Yeah, and it would just be interesting to know, because you see the articles in the newspaper about what the restitution or the convictions were, but I never ever see remedial hunter ed. That's a requirement. I don't know if that's just a standard requirement.
Stephanie just posted on her Facebook that bust up there. Was it in 4?
6.
In Region 6? I mean, you know more details about it, but I mean, personally, I'd take their trucks and their guns.
Yep.
I mean, they're felons now.
Right.
They can't have guns.
An
Anyway,
additional thing you might do is take his video and just loop it in jail. Every 30 minutes.
We have laws against
When you hand them off, brainwashed, they'd be going, I shall not.
Can I interject on this stewardship? It's back to the education platform that I come from, is what do you want them to know? How do you want them to know it? What do you do when they don't know it? And what do you do if they already know it and don't listen to it? Right? So coming back to the educational, I revamped that from my middle school terms, but you have to look at these programs of stewardship and what is the purpose? Identify your goals first and objectives, and how are you going to do that as you create, and we go through this system with that. And I did this program today. I went through this stewardship. Yeah, and it is, cumbersome.
yep.
And I felt like it was great for a student to take of the youth going through, but I think it needs a lot of work. And it needs to go back to the bare bones and go back through.
You can have them and now.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
Some of them is still pertinent.
Yeah, when you guys go into tomorrow, think of what do you want them to know?
I mean, you'll see Mike when he was like 28 years old.
Yeah, and then Paul, to yours, I was thinking about in my head, and I had an instructor tell me the other day, you're right, we're missing that age group, those people that are doing it without any consequences or morals coming in there. But what we are getting is they have kids and they're going through a hunter's ed program. And they're sitting in those vehicles saying, hey,
Yeah,
we're doing that.
We hope that works.
Yeah, and I know that it does, Paul, and I think you're right, we focus on those youth and knowing that, but they're sitting in those vehicles too. And hopefully
You're not supposed to be doing that.
yeah, and you're not supposed to be holding that accountability and
That's
really
good.
not losing hope in that too.
Yeah.
So.
And well, what I was gonna say is I know Stephanie and a bunch of us have already taken, I think a lot of us took that class. And I mean, I think everybody in here and every probably ethical hunter could take without even watching the course. You know, it took me 15 minutes to get through it and I aced it. So I-
Yeah, there's not much to watch.
After go hungry, you did it too.
I failed. No.
But anyway, what
I'll
I'm,
grade yours today though.
yeah, I know, but what I'm saying is that I think they have to go 100 to pass that course.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But that's not our target audience, right?
No,
That's who are we trying to reach?
yeah, so, and I think
Is it
that
multiple choice?
I can't remember.
No, it's not.
It's an essay test.
Yeah, it is essay, 30 or more characters per fill-in box, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you wanna switch to landowner relations? Okay,
Sure.
so.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. So we talked about it's up to us and I gave everybody a can koozie. So this campaign this year, this is our third year of it. It started out 3 years ago with, I think it was, we call it pass it on. Respect the land, respect landowners, pass it on. The 2 years ago, we switched that to it's up to us. So we've got, you know, as Ed mentioned, we've got quite a partnership. Like I mentioned, backcountry and anglers has been really engaged with us on it. But we've got a lot of support this year. We ran quite a marketing campaign. We had, I don't know if any of you saw the video on TV, the ad that ran several times. We got some good play through some of the sporting events in the fall, and so that was really successful. We also partnered with the University of Montana football team and the MSU football team. So both mascots they shot social media content for the campaign. We sponsored a day at the stadium, home game for each team, where we handed out Hunter Orange beanies. We've quite a social media outreach this year. We had billboards, we had some print advertising, we had lots of radio spots. So, you know, we're still sort of compiling what the reach was on all of that from just from a marketing and audience standpoint. My guess is we're gonna be a little more than 6 million impressions, which is pretty big for us. So that's it's up to us. We're looking at next year, kind of just maybe tweaking a little bit of what we've already done, maybe do a different ad. We run the same TV ad two years in a row. And then we're looking at maybe seeing if we can explore some more cost-effective partnerships with the universities to target, you know, to sort of recognize landowners. I think there's an opportunity there to work with like the governor's office maybe, or some other organizations to recognize landowners at a football game or something like that. So we'll see. We've got some ideas. The other thing we're going to look at and talk about with our access coordinators is signage at block management areas for it's up to us, and we're not sure what that's going to look like or what the options might be, but talk through, is there a way at the block management areas, at the sign-in box or at the map, to have some language about it's up to us in the campaign. So that's part of it. And then this year we introduced on our online site, we introduced Thank a Landowner portal. And so that came kind of mid-fall. We announced that. The idea was, the genesis is it actually came from my own experience of, you know, it's, you know, hunting, going out to a block management area and signing in. I mean, sometimes you don't even know where the person lives. You just know where the sign-in box is. You have a good day in the field and you want to say thanks, and, you know, don't really even know who, I mean, you know, you have to make a little bit of an effort to connect the dots, which is a good effort to make, but we thought maybe we could help hunters connect those dots in a way that was let landowners know how much people appreciated access. And so, we weren't real optimistic on the response, but it was pretty overwhelming. We got about 350 submissions to that thus far. And so what we're doing right now is collating all that data. It turns out we didn't ask the right questions in our little online survey, so it's been a little tricky to put the pictures with the thank yous, with the names and the landowners, but we're working through all of that now. And we'll get a letter out to all the landowners that were thanked through that portal that'll have the notes from the hunters and then the photos that they uploaded. We had about 100, I think a little over 100 photos that were submitted. A lot of just your traditional grip and grin sort of photos, but lots of happy kids, lots of happy hunters. So I think we can do better next year at promoting that. And we haven't heard from landowners, and that'll be something working with the access coordinators to see what their feedback is. I think people will like it. I think it'll be popular. I think they'll appreciate the notes, because some of the notes are, thanks for the access or thanks for letting me hunt. But some of them are, gosh, we've been coming out here for 20 years and, Jim and Jane, it's just so nice to see you every year. And, thanks for letting us hunt. I think those have some meaning. So that's a big piece. I'll stop there because I'm going to move off of the it's up to us stuff. Any questions or thoughts on any of that?
I could think access really could use that well for that feedback. Jim and Jane, type stuff. I think it'd be really helpful.
Yeah, the letters be interesting to see once people get their letters, what they think.
Stephanie?
I would just suggest if there isn't, I did submit one. I don't remember what exactly was asked. It would be good if you had a box that even allowed you guys to use the photos or the text in like social media posts and things like that. Cause I know usually photos you're not supposed to use other than what the photographer gave, but if it gave you guys permission, it might just be a nice easy click box to give you guys permission to use it beyond sharing with the landowner.
Yeah, and we talked about that. It's not so overwhelming now that we can't pick out a few good photos and just reach out to the people that submitted them and ask. But yeah, that's a good. We need to organize it a little better so that once we download everything, it's easy to just match it all up and get it all. But it was the first year and we were way more successful. So it's a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Are we gonna go to like online reservations? Is that gonna happen probably?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's
That's not his.
That's
Yeah, I
not
know. I was just thinking about adding a video to that,
Yeah.
if they do sign on, just a short video, and don't leave toilet paper by the side, or something like that, whatever.
Well, yeah,
Cover that stuff, but, and then I had another question, can I get off on what landowners are we talking about specifically what this, Greg's program is right now?
I've just got a few more things on what we've been doing on landowner relations, and then just nail me with as many questions. So the one thing we're gonna in our signage for next year that I think we want to look at is, and the access coordinators brought this up, is maybe a URL or a QR code at a sign box so that they could just put their phone up to it and take them right to the thank a landowner portal, so they can do it right there in the field, rather than coming home and forgetting about it. So on other landowner relations, so the department in looking at some commitments that we want to make, we've been working hard in the last 8 months on trying to be more effective in our relationships with landowners and partnerships with landowners in the ag community, and as a result of that, we made a more organized, concerted effort to be at industry conventions this winter. So Stephanie was a big part of organizing that. But we had staff at stock growers, farm bureau, grain growers. To talk about, the idea was to not only be there to answer questions about our programs, but to be there to start building relationships with landowners and folks in the ag industry to better understand sort of what they deal with on a day-to-day basis and to understand more about their industry so we can be more informed partners moving forward. And so we've been in that effort, we've been working on the materials that we use to help tell landowners about our programs, including our access programs, but also our habitat programs. And so we've got a sort of an updated brochure. It's kind of the same one that we've had for a while, but it's current. And then we're working on getting more resources out to the field about our programs, so we're consistent in what we're telling people about the programs. We're more thoughtful about why landowners would want to take advantage of one program over another. And then also, having material that addresses, some of the educational needs for new landowners coming to the state, like what stream access law is, what it means to, there's going to be hunters showing up, providing access, how we can help, what the sort of broader community, in Montana is and that kind of stuff. So we're working on that. The idea is to have that in the field for our staff to use as a resource this spring. Anything to add to that?
No, I think just a couple of the ideas that we've also tossed around and trying to connect with some of these newer landowners is maybe finding ways to work with the real estate industry and getting them some of this information to share is part of that. And then I think just as Greg said, this is really an agency-wide effort. It's just not in our landowner relations bureau. It's really an agency-wide effort, and not only listening to landowners and hearing what they want, but looking at us as an agency and what we're doing. We know that we have our access managers, but wardens and bios are also very actively involved, but not forgetting that we also have accounting staff that talk to landowners here and there, and just how is it that what's our agency approach to landowner relations in general. So that's what we're really looking at, just holistically and moving forward.
Yeah, and continuing to evaluate what tools we have and resources that we have for landowners. So we're talking about hard copy stuff, but eventually, I think we'd like to see better, more efficient online tools, all of those sorts of things. It's a commitment that we're operating under now that we're just going to keep working at.
Okay, that's great. I mean, those are some really good ideas, and I guess what
I tried to be as heartfelt as I could.
I hope I didn't come across this. I kind of get focused on one thing, Anyway, like I told you at the beginning, I talked to a lot of landowners. I don't know why, I get involved with trying to find out, we got problems, issues and stuff going on. So I try to reach out to a lot of people, including a lot of landowners especially in regions 4, 5, 6, and 7. And, the things that they're telling me right now is that, the department's probably doing a good job about reaching out to the people that are enrolled in block management or some of these access programs, but they're not reaching out to the people that aren't. And it's not just the non-traditional new rich landowners that are buying these places for hunting. It's the traditional landowners that are trying to make a living off the land. And talked to one of them. He said he's invited the biologist out to his place a couple times, and that person will not go out there. you know, and they need to see what's on the ground out there, and they're not willing to do that. And they butted heads with these people over whatever the archery elk permits or whatever it's been over the last 20 years, you know, and they feel like they're being left out of this process. And a lot of them tell me, I'm just not, they won't listen to me. They won't take our recommendations. They won't work with us. So we're not gonna go, we're not getting involved. We're just, and it's unfortunate. I know you guys are putting a lot of public comments out there. You're giving them twice as many opportunities to participate. And, you know, you've got the public meetings, you've had 2 sets of those. You've had, you know, the season setting and all that, you know, public comments out there. But if you look at, I look through your public comments, and you're not getting a lot of landowner participation at all. I've been to 3 or 4 of those meetings and there were hardly any landowners there at all. And so I think the department needs to do something better on reaching out to these people, whether, you know, whether you're gonna go out and, you know, send your staff out, or biologists or the supervisor, or whoever it is, go out and your access people, go out and talk to these people directly. Because a lot of them their voices aren't being heard, and they're not gonna come to you. I've been following this since 2007. And I've been watching this process that's happened over the last, you know, 16, 17 years. And they've been pretty much ignored on this process, and they've been just.
Can I ask you a question, Paul? What's their concern, the non-involved people? What's their concern with the department?
Why won't they?
No, what's their concern that we're not addressing?
Well, setting quotas for one thing. In some of the regions, they set the quota so low that, and this is an outfitter friend of mine, that he's gonna be put out of business. He can't survive on the number of non-residents that are gonna be for that area. The other thing is, you know, they've got a lot of elk on their property. Some of them, you know, they're getting overrun with elk, and usually the department says, well, you gotta let people on to hunt. That isn't the answer sometimes. I mean, if a rancher has a bunch of elk on his place during, you know, and he lets a lot of people on there to hunt, those elk are just gonna move to another sanctuary place, and it's not gonna do anybody any good. You're not gonna kill some elk, you're not gonna harvest any elk, you're not gonna get the, you know, so the landowner just basically shuts it down. I think the department really has to make an effort to try to work with these folks. I mean, they're not coming to the table. During the archery elk deal, the landowners, I've got the numbers, and the landowners were participating in and submitted their comments, and the commission and the department did just the opposite of what they wanted. So they just feel like nobody's listening to them. And the other thing is, I asked them if they even know about these public hearings and public comment periods, and most of them don't even know about it. And I probably wouldn't know about it if I didn't get the email now from somebody, MOGA or Wildlife Federation or somebody. They just don't know. I don't know how, you know, that you're just putting it in the newspapers, that a lot of them don't even read those anymore. I mean, there just gotta be a way to communicate with those folks and bring them back, you know, to where you feel like you're working with them, because they don't feel like you are now.
Yeah, I think our emphasis as a department on relationships with landowners in the ag community, I think, is a reflection of we have the same concern. And so I hope that if you were to go back to your landowner contacts, you know, in 12 months, that you would hear people with a different opinion. You know, we've been working hard at trying to get landowners to just at least notice that there's, you know, changes. And so we send out emails and stuff, and we, you know, but we know that that's not, we send out an email on like these upland game bird proposals. It might go to 85,000 people, and we know how many of those people and who opened the email. And, you know, if we get 40% of those people to open an email, that's as good as we can hope for. You know, so you figure, you've got 30,000 people out of those 80,000 that have actually clicked on it. How many paid attention to it? I mean, it's sort of the nature of communication these days. There's so many different things that are competing for people's times. And so the answer is not just more emails or more ads. It's building relationships, and building relationships. It takes time. But like I said, the commitment from the director, hopefully, and we hear what you're saying, and we've heard it from others, and hopefully in 12 months you'll start seeing the tide turn.
That'd be great.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, Eric had his hand up.
Eric, sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, that's all right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I think a lot of what Paul just said is dead on. I hear the same thing from the landowning community. I deal with a lot of landowners. I'm dealing with landowners every day, and I've tried to get them to go to different FWP meetings, to the tentative meetings, from tentatives to anything else. And the response I get continually from them is, it does us no good. We've gone to those meetings. We're never heard, never listened to. By and large, we're just ignored. And that's what's led to the absence of having landowners at any of the meetings here for the last 15 years. So I just wanted to reiterate what Paul said.
Anybody else on there? No. Okay. I guess my question would be, not being a landowner, what's the best way to get the information to? I mean, an 85,000 push with a 40% response is substantial. So, I mean, that'd be my question is, what are the best means of communicating wildlife issues for those who don't participate in programs? As you said, they're getting that data if they are, but really, what are the best means to get a response?
Knock on their door, go out there, talk to them. That's what, the one I talked to just yesterday, and he said he's invited the biologist to come out, and they wouldn't come out, it's been kind of an adversarial thing ever since those archery outfits. And so a lot of them, they're not gonna come to you. And I've heard that, I knew that the director was gonna start focusing on this. I just wanted to reiterate what I'm hearing out there and what Eric and Rod and other people are hearing, because we talked to a lot of those landowners. I think it's important.
Yeah, what I think it'll take is a personal phone call to key landowners from someone in the department. Is what I think it'll take.
I just reiterate what these guys are saying. A lot of people are frustrated, like in the bear paws, it's all deeded land. And the elk all run to the sanctuary as soon as the season starts. So they said it was kind of neat when there was 8, now there's 800 or 1,000 of them. You come up in there and you plant a bunch of stuff for the hay, for the cows, and the elk come up there in summer on it, and then they race back to the sanctuary and get away from them, and there's no, and they're just frustrated with it. I think everybody's, like Paul said, they're looking for a way to do something. I don't know if there's a game damage deal that can happen or whatever, because we need to kind of keep in mind that the elk don't always stay in those sanctuaries, and somehow somebody else is feeding them the rest of the time. And so it's just something to be added to the discussion.
And the other thing is, just opening the gates to let people in the hunt isn't the answer sometimes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, you guys. So I'll come back. I gotta leave now, but I'll come back tomorrow for the discussion on the project. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, thank you,
Greg. So that all your report is?
That is. Are there any questions for us?
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yep, good luck.
Thanks for your
Brandon.
Yeah,
enthusiasm.
thank you. Yeah, oh gosh, I look forward to it. Donna, call me. I'll call you.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah.
talk more.
Don't text me, I don't do that.
Social media.
Jason, did you have any more?
No, I'm good.
guess I have one more because you had mentioned reservations and where the department's going with online reservations for block management, and we are moving forward. We started with an RFI, I think that we reported that at the last meeting. An RFP is going out, I believe, this week. It's gonna end up putting us on track for really probably working with just a couple landowners.
RFP is.
A request for proposal, my apologies. And that request for proposal is really putting together all of the details of what it is that we're looking for, putting it out there to the world, and then different organizations will come back with their proposal on how they would meet the needs of what we're requesting. So, we're on track to implement phased implementation, likely with a small number of landowners for this fall, if we're lucky. That's our goal and desire, and then probably for 25 or 24, 25 would be more of a full-on implementation.
Good.
For landowners that are interested in online reservations.
Not all of them.
Not all are interested in it. Yeah, it really depends on the landowner. Some landowners like having sign-in where people go to their garage and sign in, and they have that real personal connection. So it really is up to the landowner. It's part of the suite of what they can choose.
So to kind of understand an RFP, so what's the deadline on an RFP?
I believe it has to be out for 8 weeks. I could be wrong. I think it's
And
6 or
what
8
did you
weeks.
say the release date was?
I was told
Just
early
roughly.
February.
Yeah, so April.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Oh,
8
for when
weeks.
the proposals will be back, yes.
and then typically,
We'd have to have it, I mean, there's a lot that has to go with implementing something like this.
Yeah.
So we're sharing the information with landowners that this is the path we're going on. And trying to learn if there's something that they're interested in this year. If we know that we have landowners that have been asking for something like this and they're interested in piloting for this year, we may be able to pilot with a couple landowners. And I say a couple, but I don't mean two. I
well,
mean, it just depends on how things come together. There's a lot of variables.
I would imagine you have a pretty clear idea who's using them that would like to improve that process, right? And reservations.
Is this in response to like the land trust and that kind of stuff where people don't wanna be involved? And they- Like an Airbnb for the block management, is it kind of a response to that?
This has been a pursuit in the department for a long time. Jason has been looking towards this since he started. And it's just become a priority of the director's office and the governor's office as well.
Thanks.
Stephanie, I think I heard at a previous PLPW meeting that, it wasn't just going to be hunter reservations, it was gonna be like parks, campsite reservations, not all part of this RFP, or is it?
They're two separate
Okay,
RFPs. So we are in the process of soliciting for a new state park reservation system as well.
Aren't the parks on that reservation?
They are on a reservation system right now, and we're in partnership with the state of Idaho on that reservation system, but that's going away, so we'll be
You're gonna change it.
implementing our very own reservation system for parks. They'll be separate.
my concern was if they were gonna, if it was the same RFP, I could see just the minutia of trying to
Yeah,
go through both programs could really bog one or the other down, so that was the purpose of my question, thank you.
Cindy?
For the RFP, did you, talk to the people who are doing it right now inside FWP to, put the parameters in the RFP?
yeah, our tech services division is handling the RFP and all of the work that goes into it, and they compiled that based off of information that we've given to them over the years. So Jason has provided information years ago. Last year we provided information, and then this year we've also provided information that goes into that RFP. We are not the ones responsible for drafting it.
Well, I
Ourselves.
realized that, but I was just curious as to whether, cause you have people doing reservations right now. are we listening to the people
Yes.
who are doing it right now?
Yep.
And going, "Hey, you know, this didn't work, this, like double booking and things like that.
They talked with our staff that are performing reservations now, like Region 4 has reservations, a lot of our regions are handling reservations. As far as a reservation platform and system, they haven't talked to us specifically about certain systems that are going on in other organizations.
Any other questions in that regard?
I have one more. So you're doing the database internally to FWP, it's not a contractor that's gathering. Once the RFP comes back, it's not a contractor that's gonna develop the database, the reservation system?
You're talking about the reservation system and a database that goes with that? That will be contracted, no.
Okay.
With the goal of it eventually integrating into the XMT program. So that it's not like you have to have a username and password here, a username and password here, a username and password here. It's all going to integrate is the goal.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're about a half an hour ahead of schedule. So I don't know if we have other questions for Jason on any other parts of Access that you want to know right now. There's that. We could take a real quick break since we haven't taken one. We are gonna go to public comment at 4, is the schedule. And then we could also jump into the question of access, hunter landowner stewardship program, and see if we just want to make a decision today. I know Greg already left, but is that your pleasure? So, I'm gonna break.
Take a couple minute break.
Okay. And that's plenty?
Yeah.
Okay. That.
Yeah.
Done.
I didn't know. It's awesome.
It happened in Hinsdale.
Can they hear us?
Okay, they're good. All right, we're good. Well, now we're to 4 o'clock. Sorry for the delay out there in the Zoom land, but yeah, we're back. So do we want to do that? No,
We have,
lost it.
don't we have
15 minutes
do public comment now?
approximately. Do we want to do that?
Probably.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just jump right to public comment. Yeah. All right. I did hand out to each of you comments that were sent in to us by one of the commenters today. So just so you have that for your reference. And Jaden, you said there's one online,
Correct.
and how many in-house want to comment? 1, 2, so we have 3. Okay. So let's start in room. Whoever would like to go first. Your name and where you're from.
Denley Logie, St. Regis, Representative Denley Logie. In your conversation you were just having now, talking about the school stewardship program, I did talk to the state superintendent of schools about that, and he said if somebody came forward with a curriculum, they could try and push that in the agenda. So when I brought that up to, she said that's a great thing, especially thinking of Montana agriculture, farming, and the stewardship that should be automatic, but isn't anymore. And then dealing with your hunter landowner stewardship course. And I was saying, if you just change the name to hunter land stewardship, and then that covers Stephanie's concerns, because it's all the land that needs a stewardship. It's not just a landowner. It's all the land. You were talking about the PAL review, whether you should be reviewing all of that, and just to lead into that, knowing from the legislature, they get very skeptical if an agency is doing all of the review process and the public is not involved. And so this way the public is involved. And I think that's the reason why we've written that ballot. So I think you really want to keep that intact. And I know that's kind of the way you were leaning from the start of the meeting. As far as the block management, and I think the flexibility that's been built into that is really the good thing. But that's also something that has to come out in an education process, because I get every ranch can write their own rules. So you have ranch rules, and when people go to the box, they get the map and read the ranch rules. Most people don't. And with that flexibility, people have to understand that every ranch has a different ranch rule. And so those hunters, I'm thinking even with block management, if almost a way you could force them to read that, say they have to turn in a signed paper that they read the ranch rules. Because some years the rules will change, from one year to the next. The rancher decides to have one part open and not another part. And so I think that's something that I don't know if that would come in the stewardship program as well, to realize that each of these ranches are different. But that gets back to the point of involving the landowners too. I think FWP hasn't always sold that, or some of the ranch owners don't understand. They can set up their own rules of what they want for hunting. And maybe they would be willing to sign up if they realize there's that flexibility written in. And some of that's a misunderstanding. Some of it might be a miscommunication. But I think that's the strong point, is that flexibility, and it has to be, I think people, both the hunters and the landowners need to know that. So that's my basic comments. And if down the road, if you have some ideas of legislative needs, I can help maybe feel out the sentiment a little bit on that. So always try to keep me in the loop if you need to.
Yeah. Mr. Corn. There you go, Mike.
Good afternoon. I haven't been in front of this body in 29 years. As you may have read in there, I had a little bit to do with this way back when I was the first staffer of the Fish Wildlife Park for the Private Lands Public Wildlife Council. It's also good to see a couple of familiar faces here and in the audience. Hi, boss. You have the letter that I had sent in, my comments on the block management rules, and I think they speak for themselves. I'm here today to speak to you in the next step from that letter. In the course of looking at those block management rules, as well as watching a number of things that have been going on with the agency since I retired. I retired in 2015, and I retired as Assistant Chief of Law Enforcement. But I've kept up with it, much to my own and my kids' chagrin. I'm still involved in conservation issues in spite of being retired. But in watching the agency over these years, there's a fundamental problem, and it's not one that's only to Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. And it's basically a loss of institutional memory. And by that, I mean, you don't know where you've been, but you're still going forward. I've seen a lot of the issues that confront Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and they come before you as issues that are not new. That were dealt with in some ways back when, and it's kind of one of those things where, oh, this is what we have now. So this is how we've always done it. But nobody knows why. The administrative rules issue was one that really struck home with me, because I helped write those rules. I knew why they did it. I have a number of colleagues who are retirees, former Fish, Wildlife, and Parks people, and even a couple of them are still hanging in with the department, who've been involved with a number of these things, Habitat, Montana, you name them all. But the loss of that institutional memory, I see as a real significant thing in the agency. I see it in the legislature, where stuff gets legislated on top of the with these layers and stuff that don't kind of drill back. Okay, why did we do this? A lot of this stuff goes back to 1995, House Bill 195, out of which this group was very, very involved when Nina Bacchus was the chair, and they proposed legislation. So I wanted to kind of say, folks, no, and the department, and perhaps you can urge the department in some way to start looking into the background of this stuff. Not the partisan right, wrong, that stuff, but why? I think that's a critical issue in block management and every one of the access issues. Habitat Montana. I mean, there's a whole range of things that the department does for hunters and conservation that the current folks don't know why it was done. They just take it for granted. And I think some of the answers that you're searching for, as well as the legislature, as well as the staff in the department, are in that institutional memory. I have a preference to it. During my tenure, I was kind of the unofficial department historian, and I dumped 6 boxes of department stuff with the Historical Society when I retired. And hopefully, once those folks manage to get the building together and they can get people in, we're looking at getting a grant to get somebody to go through and curate it. There's some fantastic stuff, photographs of Forest Service and Fish, Wildlife, and Parks guys going on an elk survey in January from Bean Lake all the way to Holland Lake on snowshoes. Now we all know what that probably included was some pretty good times, but that's important. But those things, in terms of what you're dealing with, having reference for that, why these things were done, I think will help give you some guidance. Which brings me to my next and final point. And that is, I highly suggest that you urge the department to do a comprehensive evaluation of their access programs in total, not just playing here, playing there. Go through them all and seriously look at what can be taken out and what's still relevant. My comments about the arm rules speak to that. The effort there, I think, is good, but it was done without the institutional memory. And there's some significant things in there that are taken out that I'm going, well, not so fast. But I really strongly feel that it is necessary to do that kind of a comprehensive review. What the access coordinator from Region 5 passed out, this is phenomenal. I wish when I was doing block management areas myself, I had a menu that I could walk into a landowner, say, look, we got these programs, let's talk about it. Those kinds of things would come out of a comprehensive review of the access programs. And it would be a thoughtful, methodical, and intelligent review of all of them. Because there may be room to whittle a lot of things away and put things in nice boxes. Anyhow, that's what I wanted to talk to you folks about today. I'm tickled to death. This organization is still working and still auguring away. Ed and I are old friends and we talk often about these issues. But I'm tickled of the spirit. One more thing. It's something I thought of when Greg Lemon was talking. When he talked about how the effort is being made to reach out to these agricultural groups and establish relationships, institutional memory speaking here, or some old timer, okay? That's what we used to do. We were charged. You go to the stock growers meetings, the local ones, not just the statewide ones. And I was fortunate, along with a couple of my colleagues, to have attended those meetings when wolf reintroduction was being proposed and done. And boy, did we learn a lot. But it was the best damn thing for myself and my colleagues. We got to know people. We didn't always agree with them, but my gosh, we got to know them and we could work with them. And that was an important thing. And re-emphasizing, as Lee and I were talking about just a few minutes ago, that one-on-one relationship between the field folks, landowners, and hunters, that's all critical. A lot can be done with one of these things. But you can't sit next to somebody, have a cup of coffee and talk through an issue over text messaging. That's my message. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Caden, we have one online.
Yep. Caleb Dietz, I think it is. If you wanna talk, introduce yourself and any organization you're associated with.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate your time. I'm the forester for Flathead Ridge Ranch. We have 125,000 acres up in northwest Montana, most of which is enrolled in block management, and just wanted to say thank you to the group. And I guess indicate what an important part of our program that is. Just how much we appreciate the opportunity to take part.
Thank you, Caleb. I know it's an important part of the northwestern part of the state to be able to have that opportunity. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. So does anybody have any questions for Denley, Mike, or Caleb while they're here?
I'd like to ask Caleb if he's got the limit on block management.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't quite hear the question. Go ahead.
Now, did you reach the limit on the top of the block management?
Yeah. Few times.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay. All right, any comments on what you heard? Okay. None? All right, so we have a little bit more time, so do you want to jump into that question in regards to the Hunter Landowner Stewardship Program? Okay, we'll see where we get. So what I intended yesterday or tomorrow to share with you, I got comments from Everett last night late, so you all haven't read them. But essentially, in regards to this subject, I'll read it to you. My thoughts on the Hunter Landowner Stewardship Program. It's a project the department has been diligently working on for over a year. Many stakeholders have volunteered their time and expertise to crafting a program that will be in fact impactful for current or new hunters of Montana. Hunter behavior issues and landowner concerns are growing more complex, and the need for a program like this is self-evident and affirmed by all of us on this committee. I recommend that we, as the PLPW committee, encourage the department to incentivize the use and make the necessary preparations for the 2025 legislative session. Personally, I suggest either granting a bonus point, similar to how Arizona does for those who complete their hunter ed program, to any, all, or the choice of the sportsman. The course could also be made mandatory for anyone utilizing a BMA or other private land access program. And he goes on a little more. So with that, I mean, I know we need to have some reminder discussion or further discussion. What I understand, and maybe Jason can help fill in the blanks, or Stephanie, as I see a recommendation, it would be pretty simple. And again, it's a recommendation that we would put forward. And that would be that the PLPW council recommends to FWP Director Temple that upon completion of the department's updated hunter landowner stewardship course, hunters be incentivized to take the course with one-time bonus point of their choice for one species. That the course then be updated periodically as key issues evolve. Now, I don't know if that's perfectly written or anything like that. It's just a start.
You know, I've applied in Arizona and I drew 3 of the tags I wanted down there, but you're right. I did take the hunter ed program, and it was an extra bonus point, which helped. And it just stayed with you. I mean, you didn't ever lose it, but it was for every species. So if I was putting in for sheep, moose, or sheep and elk and deer and antelope, it would continue with each one of those items. So that might be a good incentive. I mean, I forgot about Arizona doing it that way. And it seemed to work pretty good. It got an old guy like me to take the course again, so.
Yeah, you did good, Paul. I had to take the Colorado course to shoot prairie dogs.
Oh, really?
And I didn't get no bonus point. It was pitiful. It was like taking the Montana Hunter Landowner Stewardship Program. It's like, I kept coming back to it for days. Anyway. Further questions, Dale?
Just on what you just read, you said a one-time bonus point. Would that follow basically the same line of if you purchase a bonus point? I mean, it's until you don't have it or don't continue to pay for it, it drops after so many years, but this would stay with you. So you had 2 bonus points, you'd have 3 bonus points and you don't have 3 bonus points for the year you took the class. You have the 3 and then add to them if you want. Does that make sense?
It does, and I think we could probably word our recommendations so the department determines how that works, so it fits within the system. Jason, do you have a comment?
I'm not really on licensing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's an opportunity. I know there was a question earlier, we were trying to get the Zoom up and running, not to distract. But so far, there was 8,394 people who started the Hunter Landowner Stewardship course and 3,417 who finished it since 2009. So in 2023, there was 467 people started it, 178 completed it. 2022, 550 started it, 151 completed it. Kind of that. In large part, the people who've been completing it are the master hunter students. Because part of their prerequisites is that they have to complete this course.
Is there any idea why so many people don't complete it once they start?
I don't know officially, I'm sure, like you and others, when you started and get into having to watch some of the videos, which are not very well done, they've been chopped up a whole bunch, and then also a lot of the questions are fill in and answered. So just like, it's what would you do, what should you do, what could you do type questions. And it's a novel you can write for each of the questions. I don't think people are really willing to make that level of investment in that. And then it's not graded. There's nobody behind the scenes looking at your answer to actually make sure that it's legitimate.
Has the course changed, Jason, or is it this the same one that's been there for several years?
It's very similar to what it used to be when we launched the FWP portal, or my FWP. They had to break down some of the videos and chop them up into pieces. It used to be like you'd see an Isaac Walton video and it'd last 3 minutes long. Now it's like 30 seconds and it doesn't really make sense. But that was probably 2019 when we launched the portal, and it had to switch on the platform that it could actually be supported on.
So the structure may need to be revamped and changed.
Yeah, I think you guys are on the right track with kind of a complete overhaul, if it's something that the council likes.
Yeah, that was very good information, that numbers. I guess the next question, could we get somebody from licensing in here to tell us what the process would be to see if this is feasible, so that we don't go through a bunch of work and expect something that's non-feasible, or
In regards to the bonus point.
in regards to the bonus point.
We have that tomorrow.
I can ask them.
I know that's a lot. But if possible.
I'd like to maybe dig into what Arizona does, maybe. If we can get an answer tonight from them. Cause I know how it worked for me, but I don't know if it would, I think it was for sheep and it was for antelope, elk and deer. So it's, and it continued on. I mean, once you drew your tag, you still have that one extra bonus point. I think this might be a great way to get these people to take the course.
Lee?
Was there I was listening back in the most recent past, there isn't a deal to make this something that goes with block management also, or no? This is a separate thing, what you're talking about now. My question would be, how do you get the out-of-state guys? And then if you got a type 1 block management area, how do you know whether they completed it or not? You know, really, so I think we need to keep them separate.
Yeah, I would see this as a separate than a requirement. We did talk about that, as you're correct. And we talked about it as being required potentially for any access program use or incentivized. And at the end of our discussions, we had settled, I guess you'd say settled on, or determined that we would go forward with incentivization to take the course.
Good.
Did you have?
Okay, thanks.
No. Paul, or sorry, Dale.
You know, and just in that regard, and again, we've talked about this before, but I would be very much opposed to making it a requirement for somebody to hunt block management.
Right. Yeah, I don't see how you can enforce it.
And I look at it and say, if you have a block management cooperator out there and he said, I'm only opening my property up to people that have taken the hunter stewardship class, that's their prerogative. Is that a fair statement? I mean, they could set those sideboards if they wanted to.
In the past.
But to make it a requirement for anybody that hunts block management, we talked about it before, but I think that's a non-starter. I just don't think we should go there. No, I agree.
Dale, we had a landowner from Two Dot that came in and said, in order to access his property, we had to take this landowner stewardship. And they could do it now?
Yeah, that was my question.
So let's see if we can get somebody from licensing to inform us a little better on the bonus point status currently. I would still suggest that we make a recommendation by the end of tomorrow.
Yes.
Even if we leave open the detail as to how that can be applied effectively for the department and not mess it all up.
Right.
You know, I mean, yeah.
Let's see how complicated it is.
Yeah, I know for sure Director Warsek had addressed it, that the lifetime version can be complicated, in particular if you're applying it to more than one species. So I think if you make it simple, my understanding at that time was that was doable without complication to the system.
To me, what you
Let's
just
make
read,
sure.
to me, what you just read there before is simple enough. And if we go through licensing, I'd say that would be our recommendation.
Okay.
Will you be able to be here tomorrow, Representative Logie?
I have a meeting at
Okay.
8:30, so I won't be, but I can get filled in. But I think if, as long as you say the intent of what you're coming out with, and then let FWP fill in the blanks, and then I could deal with it. But
And it is a bit getting the cart in front of the horse. Because we have to have the updated program, right? But it's like you said, you know, maybe that's just, I think one of the challenges, what's the content? We can give input, but we don't develop the content. That's a big job, big ask, big lift. But whoever said that one, you know, one of the contents is the hunter reads the ranch rules. You know, I mean, it's obvious as all get out. And I do think they've changed substantially from the time of origination to now. There are many more conditions on a particular block management to make it more flexible, as it should be, than when it was first created. So, and I think we all know, people don't read very well.
And it would seem to me they could, or like the electronic sign up, which is kind of where this is pertaining to. Before you sign your name or hit send or whatever, there's a box that said, I have read the ranch rules, and you have to check that or whatever before you can get approval to be signed up in a particular block management area.
Even though you haven't read them. You check them off.
You know what, though, if you clicked them and said, I've read them, and it says no vehicles off the trail, and you clicked, I've read them, and you get picked up for driving off roads, you say, hey, here it is, you signed it, we have an electronic version that
Did
says
you read
you
all
read
the
these rules.
conditions to the OnX map
Pardon?
app?
Oh, you got the sign-in sheet, and then the map and the ranch rules is in another place. Maybe it should all be together, so you have to read through them to get to your chit. But like you said, if you sign the chit, it says you would abide by the rules.
Just being sure you said chit. Yeah.
I agree with you, Ed. We may be putting the cart before the horse. I think we want to make sure we have a well thought out comprehensive program. Because we don't want to be giving out bonus points and then say, well, that was, you know, not a well, you know, I think it's something that's gonna need a lot of work.
You
Well,
know,
let's make sure we can do it first.
I mean, to even, to the point of the current, let's just take worst case example is they take the current hunter landowner stewardship program. It's outdated, but it's not irrelevant. I mean, if you could make that number all of a sudden 50,000, which I think you would do. And I do believe non-residents are gonna take it to get a bonus point. Absolutely. So you need to address, I mean, yeah, this goes back to content.
Yeah.
You know, what do we need to speak to if you're a non-resident? You know, there are a number of issues in there that you want to make sure they understand before they get in their truck from 1,200 miles away and make the trip over to Lee and jump on,
Find a doe.
jump on his land. So, yeah,
Jason, would you be proud to put out the current program for the face of FWP if we put something like this up? You know, we want to.
I would not be an advocate of promoting the current course.
and I agree. I was just using that as a,
Right.
That said, I don't know that it's a mountain per se to actually get to where I think the group is talking about. I think it just takes some guidance and some direction, but this
I
is
think we
a
implement it,
priority to be done.
if we implement it once, the course is refined and up and going good.
Right.
agreed.
one of the
Yeah, and that's
things-
why this is once it's updated.
One of the things you can think about as we have these discussions is the incentive through legislation is your end goal. You can always put an effective date. Right. Down the road, you know, I mean, effective the next year. That's what we do typically, a lot of licensing things, because. You know, if in March 2025. This is decided that it goes through and all wins are happened, it wouldn't take effect until March 1st of 2026, really. So you could. In a sense, make sure that it happens by putting it in law that this is an incentive we're gonna offer and now we have to provide the course.
Or we can put out an RFP of our own. Yeah. An updated landowner, what do we call it?
Request for proposal, RFP.
No,
Hunter land stewardship.
yeah, that one. Yes, sir.
What you might do is give them two if they take the old one, just as nobody's getting through it. They'll say, okay, you hurry up and get through this one, you get two. And then you get the participation up and then you got time to get it fixed.
Well, and I do think when you got to this point, if we do, right? I do think you would want to include something in there that allows for the future update of the program. And if there's a substantive change, you could then qualify for that point again.
Right.
You know, let's say, I don't know what it would be. But there's a significant note that needs to be made to the course you take. That provision would be there to allow the department to do that at that point in time.
Yeah, I think the more. Structure or details you can flesh out, the better. You know, if you recommend that it be a lifetime point, that's different than a one-time point.
Right.
If you recommend that it be for all species, that's different than one species. If you recommend that it's for moose, sheep, or goat, how does your 7-year wait affect your bonus? So there's some logistical things that, the more guidance you can provide in your recommendation, the easier it will be to get across the finish line than just a conceptual, we want to do this. And then we strike and miss or it gets cobbled up because it's not clear.
So for my brain to be clear, so you're suggesting success comes more effectively if we can define how that bonus point is applied rather than leaving it open as the department determines.
I'm not gonna speak for the legislature. But
no,
I think it helps us implement and know where we're going. If that's what you want to do. Like if it's gonna be an all species thing, you need to make sure that the content touches pertinent areas related to all species. If it's just behavior focused, that's different. I haven't taken Arizona one, I've seen it where it's a lifetime bonus point, all species. But you have to pay like $400 as a non-resident to actually take the course.
I don't remember that one. Maybe.
It's for 3.
Is it? Yeah, it might have been less than that. That was a long time ago.
But I know we've heard those same conversations even for residents, right? You know, one person traveling from one part of the state to another part of the state, they don't deal with 4-strand, 3-strand barbed wire needs in certain parts of the state than you do in other parts of the state.
But that down there is a full-fledged hunter ed program where you go out with rifles and do all, you know, we're not asking them to do all that. So.
Yep.
We could raise a little more money for the fish and game this way.
Yeah, time frame wise, I don't know if you guys are gonna meet again, you know, like right into November, December. Time frame, the bill doesn't necessarily have to be drafted until sometime in January, so that gives you guys time to see what they come up, if they can come up with a better program. And then you just make the latest, you make your recommendation this year.
You told me earlier that it's just fine to get a bill in January, get it through by the end of session.
Every session is different.
Right.
I'm just saying that's the latest you can get it would be the end, but as long as you're gonna be meeting again this fall, you can see if they've come up with something before you give your final.
So we're gonna try to get somebody from licensing here if possible, to comment on the application of the bonus point to the equation. Correct? Okay, thank you. Any final comments for the day? Okay,
What time's dinner?
so
The reservation's for 6. I'm gonna zip over to the hotel where everybody's staying just to make sure that you don't have any issues checking in. So I'll see you over there.
So the hotel, everybody know where that is?
Oh, yeah.
These guys do.
Yep, oh, sorry, if we did leave a travel form with you, which, so that you can claim mileage. You can fill it out today or tomorrow, just make sure you give it to myself or Jaden.
And the restaurant is walking distance from your hotel. If you would like. Probably 300 yards maybe. Okay. So 6 o'clock at the Overland. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
We don't need to get out of jail free card, we have permission.